Hello, chat. I am Night Sky Prince, aka Ryan, and today I am joined once again by one of my favorite guests, Frustrated
Wow.
Jacob. Jacob, tell everyone a little bit about yourself for those who don't know.
Howdy. I used to, kind of still do, run a YouTube channel called Frustrated Jacob and a secondary channel for Let's Plays and streams and podcasty stuff called Research Runs. Got started out talking about Final Fantasy 15 a very, very long time ago, like when the first, big re-reveal of Versus as Final Fantasy 15 happened. Um, then I made a recap video for the Kingdom Hearts series that you've probably seen because for a little while it was the most viewed one. And I did a bunch of other stuff and made video essays and let's plays and all sorts of things. And then, I got a real job and I don't do that much anymore. That's a very short version. I've been meaning to come back and make more videos for a while, but I'm just too busy. Between my real job and the fact that I've been putting really serious, honest to God work hours into writing a novel for the last while here. YouTube's been perpetual back burner. I've been chipping away at things. I've been chipping away at scripts. I've been chipping away at editing more Let's Play episodes and other things. So hopefully I'll be back relatively soon. This not very good looking facial hair is here specifically for a video that would open with a joke about how I've been gone for a really long time. That I was hoping to shoot last week, but the script wound up giving me way more trouble than I expected it to. So, but theoretically, I'll be back with new videos sometime in the next, like, let's say month. Let's say month or two to be conservative. And I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here to talk about Ryan. You've been replaying Kingdom Hearts recently, and we're gonna talk
Yes.
about Kingdom Hearts because that's what everybody wants me to talk about all the time. It's because I got really popular for Kingdom Hearts, and then I played all the Kingdom Hearts games, and I was like, I don't really want to be just the Kingdom Hearts guy, so I stopped talking about Kingdom Hearts. But here I am to talk about it more.
Yeah. See, that's always the thing, right? You talk about one thing and then you become the guy who talks about
Yeah.
that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you
Yeah.
don't talk about it, then the algorithm is like, boo. This guy doesn't
Yeah.
talk about the thing anymore. You don't want to see
But that
his
was
content.
but that's my privilege as like I'm not a YouTuber full time. You do this full time. This is your job. You got
Right.
to make the videos. And if you
Yes.
if you want to slip in something about an unusual topic, you can because you've got a good cadence. You put out stuff about your subjects. If I'm putting out, videos very infrequently and I'm not really concerned about making money, I can kind of just talk about whatever I want to talk about, which is nice. And then I've got the audience that I have, and they stick around for whatever I want to talk about, and that's cool. And it's not really a big deal that not a I'm not huge. I would rather make videos that I really really want to make in what free time I have with my actual career instead of being like,
Mm.
I'm gonna talk about leaked code, then a change of like I don't know if you caught any of this, but there was like, oh my god, you guys, there was a patch for Union Cross, even though that game has been dead for a year. Missing link coming any day now. Oh my god, there was a line of code changed on the website. Any day now, missing link announcement. And boy, do I ever feel vindicated that I didn't spend my time covering any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is actually a good segue into our first topic here. Because last
I
time
aim
we
to
were
please.
mostly talking, yes, last time we were mostly talking about like the current state of Final Fantasy. And since then, Square Enix has effectively announced that they're rebooting the company. And this kind of
Mm-hmm.
comes as the result of, to be blunt, a lot of failed games. A lot of games that didn't come out and sell as well as they are, as well as they should have. And now they are trying to basically refocus their efforts and tremendously focusing more so on quality rather than quantity, because at one point they were putting out like 3 or 4 games in a month. And then all of them would basically not meet expectations. Some of them would have questionable Metacritic scores. It wasn't a great time. And they also canceled $140 million worth of projects. And more recently, they canceled Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. So first, actually, I kind of want to dive into something here. What do you feel about like the cancellation of Missing Link? I think you
Well,
just
you
said
should
it.
you should know, because I didn't post about it. I literally replied to one of your posts and I said, unironically, the biggest W we Kingdom Hearts fans have caught since KH3 came out.
Yeah, yeah.
I I did I the last video that I did on my main channel, which you can still go watch, was called Kingdom Hearts Needs, in parentheses, good spin-offs. And among other things, I talked about the fact that that game seemed fundamentally misguided. Uh,
Mm.
it was overlate trend chasing, buzzword addled, and seemed overly ambitious for something that was not going to grow the audience. And maybe that's not fair, because on one hand, the Union Cross Missing Link back in time stuff should have been growing the audience. In an ideal world, it's like, oh, we're making a game where you don't have to know who Sora or Xehanort or anybody is. You can just play it, and it's a cool Disney adventure with a whole other story. But of course, Union Cross never really achieved that, because Union Cross was a basic gacha mobile phone game, which is designed to extract cash out of super hardcore fans. And aside from the Pokemon Go phenomenon that was everywhere, and even aside from that, all of these other like Niantic style, ARG games only got money out of people who were super hardcore and in there already. But they were also mostly cheap. So making a super expensive one of these for people who are only in there, it's cool if you want to spend more money to make a better product for your hardcore fans. But my thing is, if the point of the game is to extract money out of people who are going to be there no matter how bad the game is, why spend that much cash? Unless you really are trying to attract new people, but then in that case, you're making a patently unappealing product. It seemed fundamentally misguided from an artistic standpoint, from a game design standpoint, a business standpoint, everything about it. And it seemed destined to crash and burn hard. And I'm very glad, as we were talking about in the pre-stream, that they decided, you know what, it actually isn't worth continuing to spend money on this. Even though people have put work in, and I'm sure there were a lot of people who are, proud of, because I didn't pay that much attention to the betas, but I know the betas had characters and cutscenes in them that were fully voice acted and animated. And it's like, oh, so is there going to be stuff in this one? There's effort on screen here. But I think it was better for everybody, including probably the developers of that game, that we moved on to anything else.
But before we continue, a word from our sponsor, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is an authorized code reseller that brings you games at a heavily discounted price. And right now, you can get Wuchang Fallen Feathers for only $35. That's $15 cheaper than you'd pay for it on Steam. You can also get Kingdom Hearts 1.5 plus 2.5, which is $5 cheaper than the current Steam price. And to make everything better, they allow us to give away a free game every month. Smack that participate button and you are entered to win. So be sure to check out Instant Gaming with a link. So one thing that comes up a lot when it comes to Kingdom Hearts is that everyone talks about, is this game hard to follow? Is it confusing? And all these types of things regarding the story. But to me, the problem with Kingdom Hearts is not so much that it is so complicated that you need a PhD in order to get the story. It's just that it is actively laborious for someone who is a casual fan to keep up with Kingdom Hearts. So the problem with KH's story structure, I think, is not that it's confusing, not that it's inaccessible from a hardware perspective, the way it was before, but so much that it is impossible to be a casual fan of Kingdom Hearts, like a guy who just enjoys Kingdom Hearts whenever it comes up. You have to be dedicated to following mobile games and mobile game translations. And if you aren't, then, if you don't get Kingdom Hearts 3, 4, 5, whatever the next game is, then, that's your personal responsibility. That kind of basically makes it so that casuals get pushed off the edge, right? And I think that creates a very difficult situation for them where it's a lot tougher to enjoy the story if you're not deeply dedicated to Kingdom Hearts and have been for years. And that, to me, is more of the issue then whether Kingdom Hearts, as you're actively consuming it, is difficult to comprehend. Because,
Yeah.
if you are a Kingdom Hearts fan, then you've already done all the deep diving into like the Kingdom Hearts Wikipedia, Kingdom Hearts Ansem reports, every Kingdom Hearts YouTuber who's making lore videos explaining it to you. I don't think that stuff's the issue. I think that it's just hard to be a normal guy who likes it,
Yeah, yeah. This is what I was talking about earlier, to talk from more of a business perspective than an artistic, like enjoying the art perspective. But like, if you've got a series where, you've got to consume even the Marvel movies. I think one of the things that's happened that has fouled up their strategy following Endgame and Infinity War. To take a bit of a divergence, but hopefully it will reveal my point. To see Avengers numero 1, you could have theoretically walked into that movie and not have seen any of the movies, and you could have followed it. You didn't need to see any of the movies before that. If you had gone to see Avengers 1 and you had seen Iron Man 1, and maybe you caught half of Thor on a plane, and you saw Captain America, you were good. You didn't need to see Iron Man 2. You didn't need to pick up every single thing that happened in all of those movies. You didn't need to see the Incredible Hulk. Now, what they kind of did wrong, and it stayed that way. Like, you didn't need to catch Guardians of the Galaxy to follow what was going on in all these other movies, even though Guardians honestly wound up being one of the most important ones, but that was fine because it was like one of the most popular ones. It was one of the most seen ones. But you didn't even necessarily need to have seen it. You didn't need to see Ant-Man. Didn't need to see, like, you could miss stuff. Now it's like, okay, if you want to know what's going on in the Marvel movies, you better have watched the new Ant-Man. Like the funny guy, the Paul Rudd funny man who turns into Ant. You know him? Yeah. If you didn't watch his movie, guess what? You have no idea what's happening. You don't know who the main antagonist is. And I think we've wound up in a similar situation now where I don't think it's quite as bad with Kingdom Hearts as some people say. I've come on this show before and I've argued that you actually like people overblow the importance of the mobile phone games, because what do I know about the Furry Foretellers 5 by having observed everything that happened in the mobile phone games and watching that movie that somebody who played Kingdom Hearts 3 blind doesn't know? I know that they were in the past and they disagreed with each other about things. And then in Kingdom Hearts 3, they walk out of portals from the past and they disagree with each other about things. Like, I really didn't get any insight into any of them through their many wacky adventures in that movie. And in the same way, like, what do I know about Strelitzia from the mobile phone games? I know that she was in love with the player character and she died. And now, if I watch a Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer, I already know one of the two things about her, which is that she's dead. I think in some ways, like, the argument of you got to catch every single little bit of this is a little overblown. But you are right that it's if nothing else, it looks intimidating from the outside, because the fans, very similar, like, the Undertale fan base that was like, you have to play Undertale exactly this way, and if you don't play it that way, you're ruining the experience for yourself. It's like you got people saying, well, of course you got to play 358 Days Over 2. That's the best one. Of course you got to play Birth by Sleep. It's absolutely critical to understanding what's happening in the story. Of course you got to play Dream Drop Distance. It sets up everything you need to know about Kingdom Hearts 3. Realistically, you could probably miss some of these and you'd be just fine, because the story really isn't that complicated. But when you buy that Kingdom Hearts all-in-one collection and it's like, hey buddy, you got so much value for your buck, here's 9 games, don't you feel taken care of right now? And you're like, I don't know if I want to rearrange the first 6 months of my gaming year around all of these games. Maybe I won't start this today, and then I won't start this today turns into I won't start this ever. It's a real problem. Final Fantasy has the same problem because people think they need to play all of them. Anyway, sorry, that was a little bit of it was a little bit roundabout and backwards, but I was agreeing with you. They have a serious branding problem. They need to, this is where I was making the argument I made in that video, Kingdom Hearts needs good spin-offs, is that, like, why don't we have a game that comes out that markets itself intensely to kids who are not experienced with this game because they were born after Birth by Sleep even came out? Why are we not making a game about, here is a story about a kid who's like an ace gummy ship pilot, and he has to stop some villain that has nothing to do with anything else in Kingdom Hearts, but he gets to hang out with Donald Duck and Goofy, who are busy while Sora is off in hell. He gets to meet other famous Disney characters, and they mention stuff about that adventure that Sora went on, and this new kid can go, who's that? And then they can look it up, and they can maybe decide to play these other games.
Right.
But we don't have that onboard ramp. I think it's ridiculous that the one in particular that galls me is that why wasn't Melody of Memory like an actual real action game starring Kairi going on some kind of dream adventure to try and figure out what happened to her missing boyfriend and interacting with the ghosts of the other Disney princesses while she was at it. Because like the anecdote I gave in that video was trying to help a friend of mine who has young kids find something Disney-y and princess-y for their Nintendo Switches. And when I was looking up, are there any Disney princess games? Because there used to be like just like trash shovelware Disney princess games like on Game Boy Advance and Wii and whatever back in the day. They don't really do that anymore. Now it's like they actually make good games like Starlight Valley. But when I was like Disney Princess, Nintendo Switch, I saw Kairi on the cover of Melody of Memory before I saw Jasmine or Cinderella. So, like, that is, like, a wonderful, as I called it, confused grandma purchase opportunity that is blown because it's a okay rhythm game that doesn't have a story and where the girl on the cover doesn't show up until the end. I don't understand the strategy.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
For me, that's what I felt like Dream Drop Distance should have been like, because that was kind of a clear filler art game. If I recall correctly, and you probably know this better than me, is even though when I kind of implied that it was, we need something in between this and Kingdom Hearts 3, and the 3DS is out, and they want a Kingdom Hearts game. So we're going to make a Kingdom Hearts game, and not much like real progression happens in Dream Drop Distance narratively. Not like
that's fair.
Like, oh my god, this is like so amazing. Like you have to play it. Like in terms of like how much leaps it takes with like the story and the characters. It doesn't really do that.
I don't think that was like a. I don't think that was like a Nintendo mandate, because I know the story at least is that Nintendo was like, hey, Chain of Memories did really good, we want one on DS. What I've heard, what Nomura said at least, is that he saw like the early prototype for the 3DS when it was getting passed around to all the companies, and he ran and was like, I want to make a game for this. This is really cool. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Then it became a Kingdom Hearts spinoff. So not quite like a corporate mandate thing, but it was definitely, he was more interested in the hardware and like, oh, we can make like a serious action game on a handheld now. I think that was the driving factor, was like, we've got a handheld where we can have big rooms and you can move really fast because it's powerful enough that we can do the flow motion, leaping off of walls and zipping around, and it'll work and the system will hold up to it. I think that was the impetus, more so than I've got this idea for a story where Sora and Riku go on an adventure. I think it was the gameplay systems first.
For me, like, that was the perfect opportunity for a Kairi game right then and there, right? Because if you were looking for that kind of arc, but it was also something that would like solve what fans really wanted, I think that was the perfect opportunity to make her playable. And even now, I'm still wanting like a real Kairi game, like a real, like actual full game of just her, because I do feel like she's been underserved by the series. And even now, when I go back and play like Kingdom Hearts 1, it really feels like they were like sowing the seeds for like these very big reveals with Kairi, where she was going to like, really take front and center stage that never really work out. I don't think that's going to happen in Kingdom Hearts 4 from like what we know, but that's like something that Kingdom Hearts 4 could do to make me like, make me like super lock in.
I think they basically already spent all their cards there. Like, because at the ending of Melody of Memory, it's like, she remembered with her memory when she got thrown in the pod by the bad guys, and he just says a bunch of stuff that has more to do with, like, I don't even remember what he says, but it's like nothing to do with her. It's just like he basically gives some exposition about his evil plan, and I think he might talk about the Foretellers or Verum Rex. I feel like there might have been some of that buried there, but I haven't watched those cutscenes since Melody of Memory came out. But it's like it had nothing to do with her. It was just like, okay, at one point when she was unconscious 15 years ago, somebody said something to her that had nothing to do with her. I don't know. It's not even so much like, we need a Kairi game, or we need like the Gummy Ship game that I used as an example a second ago. You just need something accessible, because you were talking about, Melody of Memory didn't come out. What should they like? How did the cadence of this franchise? How did it affect public perception, sales, popularity, etc. Because we talked a lot about Final Fantasy kind of falling off the
Right.
wagon, not necessarily in
And,
terms of quality, but just the release schedule.
in terms of sales, yeah, and release schedule too. And like one thing that Kingdom Hearts 3 had it going for it was that there was a steady cadence of projects leading into Kingdom Hearts 3. So even though we didn't have like a mainline Kingdom Hearts game, we had like, Birth by Sleep and Dream Drop Distance and all these games basically leading into Kingdom Hearts 3. Such that it hadn't been that long since we had like a Kingdom Hearts game. But now we're looking at Kingdom Hearts 4. And in terms of like a major game, aside from like Melody of Memory, which I don't think anyone in chat would count as a major Kingdom Hearts game,
I don't think
it has, I mean, we're probably going to close in on close to a decade between Kingdom Hearts 3 and 4. And I'm wondering, what do you think that is going to do to the franchise? Do you think that could even potentially affect Kingdom Hearts 4's sales?
so. So that's a complicated question. For one thing, I think what's really interesting about talking about we had all these games, quotation marks, leading into Kingdom Hearts 3, is that Dream Drop Distance came out in 2012 and Kingdom Hearts 3 came out in 2019. To be fair, they were targeting 2018.
Oh God.
And
Maybe
they were targeting 28. They were targeting 2018. That was what their announced release date was, and I bet before they switched off of Luminous to Unreal, I bet they were targeting even earlier than that, like probably like 2017, 2016. I'm sure they didn't think it would take that long.
Right.
But you aren't actually wrong, despite what it might look like on a Wikipedia article, that it wasn't really ever out of the zeitgeist, because they kind of deliberately trickled out the remastered releases so that there was a game every year. Because they did 1.5 as a separate game, and that came out 1 year. And then the next year, 2.5 came out. Then the collection came out. There was all of them on PS4 instead of PS3. It came to PS4 and Xbox and I think PC all at the same time. And that was a year. And that was a new retail release. It was a new box that was on shelves. And then they did 2.8, which was not just a Dream Drop Distance remaster, but had new content in it. It had a little elaborate Kingdom Hearts 3 demo with the Aqua Adventure. I want to say there was like 1 year in there where nothing happened other than the mobile phone game, but I forget where that gap was. But they actually they were actually pretty savvy about how they trickled all that out to make sure that they were never completely out of people's minds. Now we do have the problem of there hasn't really been anything. I think Missing Link was supposed to help with that, but when the hell was Missing Link even announced? Hold on a second.
Oh man, I don't even know.
Hold the phone. Hold the phone for a second. I'll be right back.
God, because I'm trying to think myself, and it's been a while. And that
development began.
That was announced with 2022, right? Because it was announced alongside KH4.
Development began in 2019. I'm reading from the KH Wiki. Spawned as an R&D project for Kingdom Hearts 3. Initial pitch was a modified build of Kingdom Hearts 3. Game was actually built from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. Oh, okay. Well, that's cool. They're using Unreal 5. That raises my. Do we know if they're using Unreal 5 for KH4 or not? Do we have any idea about that?
They are using Unreal Engine 5 for KH4. Now, the trailer that we saw for KH4 was in 4, and then they said that they were going to transition the game into Unreal Engine 5. So it's assumed that the screenshots that we saw are the new build of the game running in Unreal Engine 5.
Got it. And yeah, you were right. It was announced at the 20th anniversary event in 2022. So it took that game a little over 3 years to get canceled. And it was a mobile phone game. So that's not great.
Yeah.
That's not fantastic. That's a lot of money.
6 years and 100 active developers.
This goes back to our pre-stream discussion about sometimes it is kinder to end things sooner. But anyway, I'm of two minds about the gap between Kingdom Hearts 3 and Kingdom Hearts 4. On one hand, I think that there are probably a lot of people who played Kingdom Hearts 3 and weren't terribly impressed with it. Now, I obviously did a Let's Play that ended with me going, I think I hate this. And that was, and to be fair, that was just because I didn't like the ending very much. I actually think Kingdom Hearts 3 is pretty good overall. But there were a lot of people who were like, oh, I'm finally going to play a Kingdom Hearts game. Everyone's been talking about it. There's a new one out. And they played it and they were like, Some people loved it. Some people were like, yes, this is great. And they went back and played all the other ones. Some people felt that it was impenetrable and kind of weird and silly. The tone was off. I feel like the girlfriend reviews review of Kingdom Hearts Kingdom Hearts 3 was like a really solid kind of what I was worried normal people would react like. It ends with her like singing a version of You've Got a Friend in Me, where that goes, this isn't like Disney or Final Fantasy. Like, because it's not it doesn't really have the like epic scale. It doesn't have like the intimate personal stakes. It's just like little episodic chunks, and then in the middle the characters talk about the lore of replicas. Like, I don't think it was really a great onboarding point, even though they desperately designed it to be like, you don't need to know anything, you can just play this one, by making all the Kingdom Hearts, all the Disney worlds like isolated little stories. I think that worked for some people really well, and I think for other people it bit them in the ass. But you can't please everybody. So this isn't me trying to go what they should have done with KH3. I'm just talking about the effect that it might have had.
Right.
Waiting a long time. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that, like, honestly, even now, they're kind of prepping Kingdom Hearts 4 and, like, what they've been saying in interviews to be like, this is the one where you can just start with Kingdom Hearts 4 and you'll be good, man. Like, this is the entry-level Kingdom Hearts, which I think if they actually achieve that is great, right? Because every series, that long-running series especially, that comes up with a new good entry point, some examples that come offhand are like God of War 2018, but also Yakuza 7, right? And then they kind of rebooted to Like a Dragon in the West here. But those games really were like good hopping in points for people who hadn't played, the previous games. And make no mistake, it's not like they non-canonize everything that happened before. That stuff still comes up. But for the most part, very palatable games for people who only vaguely understand the concept of what they're supposed to be about. Now, I know a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans who are very much in love with like the ongoing story. They vehemently detest the idea of KH4 being something that dials back in any way. And if it they want it to be something that goes all the way in. But the only problem with that is that, at some point, a lot of people who are, again, the casual Kingdom Hearts fan, they're just going to check out because they're just going to be like, man, I cannot keep up with this.
Someone in chat, I'm going to loop, this is only tangentially related, and I want to comment on what you were saying. But someone in chat said something that gave me a little bit of psychic damage, which is, they said, we got GTA 6 before we got Kingdom Hearts 4, right? But then I was like, okay, like that statement on its own is nothing. But then I was like, hold on a second. When did Red Dead Redemption 2 come out? And Red Dead Redemption 2 did come out 5 months before Kingdom Hearts 3. And there has been constant DLC for Red Dead Online and Grand Theft Auto 5 Online in the intervening time. And we are, in fact, going to get Grand Theft Auto 6 before we get Kingdom Hearts 4. And that actually is pretty embarrassing. But talking about making stuff like a fresh start, right? You reference Yakuza Like a Dragon, and that's a good one. But I think there's something that probably people think, oh, this is just a cosmetic change. It probably isn't actually that important. And I was always kind of split on that. And now I'm starting to think, no, I think it really is a legitimately important thing to do. I think it has a substantial financial impact, which is dropping the number and giving us a subtitle. Because Yakuza Like a Dragon was Yakuza 7, but it wasn't called Yakuza 7. It's called Yakuza Like a Dragon. Yakuza Infinite Wealth was Yakuza 8, and they did something clever where they did the infinity symbol as an 8 sideways. And then you see similar stuff with Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil Biohazard, where they put the Roman numerals like in the title. Even Metal Gear Solid 5 didn't have a 5 really like on the cover. Like, it was the exclamation mark with a V for the Roman numeral 5. People are getting very clever about how they obfuscate and file off their numbers. I think calling it Kingdom Hearts 4 is possibly a mistake, except for the fact that they already have such a reputation about spin-offs with silly subtitles. Like, it might be important for them to emphasize this is a mainline entry and not a subtitle. But
I feel like
maybe
you can't do it with KH.
I feel like what they could do is they could put the Roman numeral like slightly opaque behind the words Kingdom Hearts and a subtitle. I feel like that's how you could get away with it, where someone who knows to look for it would see the 4, but the average person would just see Kingdom Hearts New Beginnings or something like that. Which isn't, of course, within Mr. Nomura's like subtitling styles, but sometimes the more important thing is to make money so that you can make the next game.
Right.
Sometimes
No,
you
that's
need
true.
to just sell units so you can make the next game.
So, do you think
Go ahead.
that Kingdom Hearts 4 had cutscenes and references to Missing Link that now they have to rework as a result of Missing Link being canceled?
No.
No.
I don't
Why is that?
believe that for even 1 second.
Why so?
Because I still don't know a single thing about the Master of Masters, and he's going to be the main antagonist of the next series. And we still got to deal with him. We still got to figure out what he was up to. Like, he's important. Figuring out what Brain was up to in Scala ad Kylum with all the sailor Keyblade wielders, I sincerely don't think that there was, like, if there was anything in there, it was going to be something really insubstantial, some little cute reference. We've got so much more pipe to lay from the first mobile phone game that we still don't really understand what happened or who any of those key characters were. I don't think there's anything from Missing Link sitting on the cutting room floor of KH4. They might, I mean, they might decide we literally want to recycle entire story elements wholesale from Missing Link and put them like in a magical storybook that Sora finds or something. That I could maybe see. But I don't think that I think people, maybe I'm wrong, but my confidence in the relevance of those spin-off games has been totally torpedoed by Kingdom Hearts 3, where nothing that happened in the mobile phone game mattered until literally the post-credits sequence. So I have no belief that Missing Link was going to matter substantially to Kingdom Hearts 4.
That makes sense. If it was going to matter, it would probably matter either to the DLC or I imagine the Kingdom Hearts 5 rather than Kingdom Hearts 4's main story.
Yeah.
But since they seem to have an emphasis, and this is according to Nomura himself and not according to the marketing team, about how he kind of wants this to be like an accessible first title for people, I think it would kind of make sense for it to dial back on that.
Yeah, and like I said, the Master of Masters, you know just as much about him if you haven't played the mobile phone games as I do. I know that he's mysterious, and he believes in balance between light and dark, and he's a little bit of a mischievous, funny guy, but also he's got a dark side to him. He's got an edge. Ooh, what's he up to? I don't know. So
So
he could be the main antagonist of this game, and I don't think it affects, like, you don't need the backstory. You don't need to go read the novel. You don't need to go read the mobile phone game.
Are you ready for my theory?
What's your
Are
theory?
you ready for my theory?
I bet you it's not gonna. I bet you're not gonna knock my socks off because I've heard some crazy Master of Masters theories. But you take your best shot.
I'm not gonna knock your socks off. The Master of Masters is Noctis, like the actual Noctis, and that's why he's voiced by Ray Chase. And he's gonna take the organization like hood off, and he's gonna be like, "Where's Versus 13?" And then
That's what he was doing while he was in the crystal.
Yeah, and then he's gonna open the black box and like copies of Versus 13.
Versus 13
like,
are gonna spill out
like on a PlayStation 3
PlayStation
Blu-ray
3
disc.
disc. But we don't have a PlayStation 3. We can't play it.
Yeah, well, it's too bad. Meta commentary, brother.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But talking a little bit more about sales of Kingdom Hearts 4, a concern that I've had since even before Kingdom Hearts 3 came out was that Kingdom Hearts 4, no matter if it was a better... I believe... Again, I think some people think I don't like Kingdom Hearts 3. I do. I like that game. I have a firm belief that Kingdom Hearts 4 will be a substantially better game than Kingdom Hearts 3. I think that there were a lot of growing pains on display in Kingdom Hearts 3. I feel like they felt like structurally indebted to like, well, we gotta do the Disney worlds this way, but we can't really integrate Xehanort or any of the bad guys into it. We can't have a boss fight with Larxene on Frozen World because in Dream Drop Distance we established that she can't die. We can't even fight her until the ending of the game. And maybe Disney may have also said what you could and couldn't do with the Disney worlds. I don't know. I feel like there were so many external limitations, narrative limitations, structural and gameplay expectation limitations plus the fact that you have a development team mostly comprised of people who are making mobile phone games, not mobile, sorry, handheld games, moving to a totally different ecosystem, totally different scale. I think that it's unfortunate that the Growing Pains game had to be literally called Kingdom Hearts 3, but I'm glad we got past it. And I firmly believe that Kingdom Hearts 4 will be a better game. I also firmly believe it will sell less. I firmly believe it will sell significantly less because there are people who are lapsed gamers who hadn't really played games all that much. Maybe they had a PS4 sitting around as a combo Blu-ray player. Maybe their spouse still plays video games, but they don't really. But Kingdom Hearts 3 finally came out. Oh my god, I've been waiting for this game since 2006. I'm gonna go and get it for old time's sake. And did they even beat it? Did they even take it out of the cellophane? I don't know. How many people bought it because Half-Life 3 confirmed, right? Like, and Kingdom Hearts 4 is not gonna have that power. I think that I don't know this for sure, but I guess we should say spoilers for all Kingdom Hearts everything in this, just in case. But I think that at the very ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, when Sora dies, that feels to me like a even if it wasn't meant this way, even if it was, because people have argued that it's something that Tetsuya Nomura was planning forever, because in the secret ending of the final mix version of Birth by Sleep, there's a shot of Sora on the Palpu fruit tree, and then the screen flashes, and then he's gone. Oh my god, he's been planning it all along. And maybe he had been, I don't know. Maybe he had this idea about sending Sora to hell forever. I don't think he could have had the idea until after Versus 13 was canceled. So that's where that gets shaky for me. Like, I don't see any world in which he was like, after I finish my big trilogy of games Versus 13, then I'm going to do it again in Kingdom Hearts. That doesn't make any sense to me. But whatever. Maybe he was planning it, maybe he wasn't.
I think that, I kind of think that he always planned to connect them. Like, that was, my big brain take, was that he
I don't know that
to make Versus and Kingdom Hearts, a together thing.
I don't think it was ever going to be a together thing. I think probably he would have been like, oh, this is my Final Fantasy that I own, that's my baby. I can put it in Kingdom Hearts really confidently and maybe more heavily featured than the other ones. I don't think that his M-rated mature game about breaking people's arms and using them as human shields for machine gun fire, I don't think... I've always, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, because obviously he loves Kingdom Hearts, he loves his characters there, but it really feels like it's not what he wants to be doing in many ways. Like, he wanted to build, he was like, I played Mario 64, I want to make a game like this. And then you've been playing Kingdom Hearts 1. I think you can really see the influence there of, there's actually not that many cutscenes in Kingdom Hearts 1. It's not really that narrative heavy. The point of that game is to explore rooms and look for hidden paintings on the walls that you can jump into. That's the most important textural experience of Kingdom Hearts 1. And then that series went on forever, and then it turns from Sora's like my son to Sora is like my enemy in interviews after he gets Versus 13 canceled. I don't know that they were ever going to be like this. But my thing is, maybe he was always going to kill Sora and send him to hell for one reason or another. That's totally fine. I have no problem believing that. But one way or the other, leaving that game on a cliffhanger of, oh no, what happened to everybody's favorite boy, Sora, kind of feels like a desperate gambit to get you to buy the next one. But then also they wimp out and they do a post-credit scene where, look, he's alive in Tokyo. It reminds me of season 2 of Sherlock, when they recreate the oh my god, did Moriarty and Sherlock both die cliffhanger ending when Sir Arthur Conan Doyle thought he was done with Sherlock Holmes. But the BBC TV show doesn't have the stones to do that. They don't have the stones to be like, oh, we really killed him. Are we going to do a season 3? They have to immediately show him off at the side of a graveyard watching Watson with a smug look on his face. That was kind of what the ending of Kingdom Hearts 3 reminded me of. But I don't know. I fear that even though that game will probably be better, and it will probably be an earned starting point, I think there are too many people who had reactions similar to Girlfriend reviews, or even like a Video Game Donkey, who I think people are way too hard on him when it comes to him talking about RPGs, because I think it's pretty obvious that he does like Kingdom Hearts, even though he thinks it's dumb. Like, he enjoys playing those games, and he wanted Kingdom Hearts 3 to be good, and then it was annoying because it wasn't as funny as an actual Disney movie. It wasn't as well performed as an actual Disney movie. And then all of the character stuff that you may be interested in, like, oh my god, are Sora and Kairi ever going to get together? Is Riku ever going to get over his emotional problems? It's like, we don't care about any of that. We're just going to have everybody line up in a row at the end of the game, and they're going to fight each other.
Right.
And I think it's hard to win some people back.
Right.
And I think it's going to be hard to pull in a totally new audience when the reputation is there's 700 games and it's hard to get into, and Kingdom Hearts 3 was a mixed bag. I think they've got a significant uphill battle ahead of them.
Right. Because one thing that I'm significantly processing right now as I go back through Kingdom Hearts 1 is exactly what you say. It's a Final Fantasy game and it's a Disney movie. And it feels like both at the same time. And I don't really know if 3 quite gets that. But I think 2 still gets it.
2 does. In fact, I would say 2 in some ways gets it more.
Yeah,
because 2 you've got...
I would agree.
In 2, you have the second loop. You get to do, just fun Disney stuff the first time, and then the second time around, the Final Fantasy villain gets to show up. But your Kingdom Hearts party member, your Disney Hearts, your Disney party members, Mulan or Jack Skellington or Jack Sparrow or whoever are like, hey, Lou Shord, weird guy in a cloak with, like some of the most fun of Kingdom Hearts 2 is when Jack is like, I want to talk to Sora about the mechanics of the Keyblade and traveling to other worlds. And Luxord talking about, I wonder if these coins that steal men's souls could have anything to do with our bodies. Like, that's really fun. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 doesn't have any of that. And it's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Well, there's not as much interaction, I feel like, in a synergistic way, other than like maybe like Monsters Inc., where they throw vanitas through the door, but for the most part it feels like there's like a clear separation between the Disney and the Kingdom Hearts Final Fantasy-esque nonsense, and they kind of like lock the two away behind each other. But honestly, I don't really believe that like it was purely Disney that was making all those calls there, because after after looking at like the kind of the fiasco with Smash, like knowing that it wasn't Disney all this time that was holding things up, I kind of wonder, like, maybe this was Nomura's choice to. Do you know like the Foursquare meme of Sora with Kirby and Shulk with Kirby? Yes, and it's like how Kirby has like a Monado. Yeah, it's like Kirby. Yeah. If Kirby copies Sora's abilities, he doesn't actually get a Keyblade. He gets just like some stars in the shape of a Keyblade. And it's like a little picture of Nomura, like, no, there are serious lore implications to being a Keyblade wielder. So Kirby is only copying his abilities, specifically his magical abilities from Kingdom Hearts 1. And then over here, Shulk has the Monado, and it's like, yeah, why not? Sure. that meme was so accurate. It was so accurate, So I honestly don't know if everything is like purely Disney, right? Because you would think that at some point Disney would also be like, yeah, I don't know about putting literal versus 13 into like Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, that's why I don't really know. That's why you and I were talking about, like, oh my god, he's trying, like 2 years ago or whenever. God, 3 years ago when the stupid trailer for KH4 came out. It wasn't stupid. It was a fine trailer. I just feel dumb that it was 3 years ago. Like, we were talking about it at the time. You were like, I think he's trying to slip, like, he's trying to backdoor the whole project in here. And I'm like, he can't. It was an M-rated game about using peoples as human shields. Like, he can't. It's impossible. Yeah. It's whatever it is, it's going to be, like, harshly compromised. I mean, he's trying, but... Right. Again, that's another area where I don't know how much of that is like, because over wherever he is in Japan right now working on this, is he really rubbing his hands together and going, finally, at long last, my vision is coming to fruition? Or is he going, how am I going to get people to buy this game? What if I put out a video where Zach or Cody from Sweet Life, whichever one, is in the car, and he just is Noctis. And he just is Noctis. How many more units would I sell? Maybe this is overly cynical of me, but this is how I look at things. Because it can't be versus 13. It just can't be. It's going to be parts of it. He might try to recycle, like you and I did talk about, again, 3 years ago, like about recycled thematic elements. Like, I think that one of the more interesting parts of Kingdom Hearts 3 from a writing standpoint is when Sora dies the first time and gets better. When he goes to the final world and he talks to all those stars
who are literally the lights of expiring souls, and they're all talking about regrets that they have from their life and things that they wish they'd done before they died. And that was something that was like talked about repeatedly in the press and trailers for Versus 13. I think there's going to be stuff. I think there's going to be elements. I don't know how much of the plot is going to survive, because I don't think it can survive. But if there's thematic echoes, then yeah, sure. But also, we never got Versus 13, so we'll never really be able to know how much thematic stuff he's truly recycling.
It's honestly kind of funny, right? Because we were told that the story of Versus 13 was going to be too mature for like a mainline Final Fantasy, or too gruesome and too violent.
Yeah.
And then they like turned around, and the next mainline entry of Final Fantasy was Final Fantasy 16, where in the first hour, Joshua's dad's head gets beheaded, gets cut off right in front of him. Blood squirts like all over his face. And like they're like, Versus 13, we just don't know if that's like compatible with like the Final Fantasy brand. I kind of wonder.
That was like 15 years earlier, because they can't make games fast enough.
That is true, and that is sad. But it is weird that they went from those two polar standpoints on that.
Talking about Final Fantasy, in Final Fantasy's inconsistent cadence, Kingdom Hearts' inconsistent cadence. I said this on that video I made a year and a half ago, and a lot of Kingdom Hearts fans will think it's sacrilege, but like I don't really care, because Tetsuya Nomura, I guess people assume, because people make fun of Tetsuya Nomura so much. So you hear somebody say something like what I'm about to say, and you think that I'm saying I think Tetsuya Nomura isn't talented, or I don't think he should be making games. And I disagree with that completely. I think Tetsuya Nomura is insanely talented. Just because he misses and hits doesn't mean that the hits don't hit. Like Steven Spielberg made bad movies, dude. Like, just because I'm like, I think Dream Drop Distance wasn't very good, doesn't mean I think Tetsuya Nomura sucks.
Right. That's the creative process, right? Like, that's how it works.
But with that in mind, I really, really think there should be a B team making Kingdom Hearts games, and I don't mean mobile phone games, and I don't think Tetsuya Nomura should be directing them.
Yeah.
I think that, I'm probably going to get some of the details on this wrong, but if I recall correctly, Days, which is a lot of people's favorite game in the series, was, like, Tetsuya Nomura wrote the script. That was the first one that he ghost wrote. And I've joked before that it seems to me like Tetsuya Nomura doesn't really care so much about like intimate character work. He cares about big ideas and vibes, and twisty mysteries and lore, which is why like you get a bunch of games where the characters don't ever talk to each other. Like in Kingdom Hearts 3, when the characters meet up for boardroom meetings between Disney worlds, they just talk about replicas. They don't talk about like how they're feeling or what's going on, or I wonder how Kairi's doing, or I wonder, I remember meeting Terra. All those, like, they don't have conversations about their feelings or their relationships. In Days they do that, but I feel like that was almost like structurally imposed upon him, that like I have to write scenes where the characters just sit around and talk about their feelings. But sorry, what I was going to say is that game's storyline was not conceived by him. The character of Xion and the entire storyline was conceived and outlined by, I forget her name, but the woman who writes the light novel adaptations of Kingdom Hearts. She actually like came up with the entire concept, I think based on like an initial starting point pitch from Tetsuya Nomura of making a game about the organization and Roxas. And then she came up with Xion, and she came up with the structure of the game, and then he wrote the script. And people really like that game. I really like that game. Other people can have good ideas for Kingdom Hearts. The idea that all of these games are like iconoclastic constructions of Tetsuya Nomura's exclusive mind palace genius. Like, Hideo Kojima didn't make his games in a vacuum. Other talented people worked on them and had ideas for them. And if we're worried about the fact that Kingdom Hearts has a really weird release cadence, and there hasn't been a game since, like, it's going to be like 6 or 7 years between games. And between Dream Drop Distance and Kingdom Hearts 3, all there was re-releases. And it's getting impenetrable because it's one continuing storyline. I really don't see the harm in picking some other young, talented person. The same way that they just picked a young, talented person to lead up the FF7 remake project, right? I don't see why we don't hand it to somebody who has a really good idea and say, hey, you go and make the B games. You go and make a spin-off that's set in the Kingdom Hearts universe, anywhere in the timeline that you like, that anybody can play. That's like, where just you go on an adventure and there's bad guys and there's Disney worlds. And I feel like that would be a not only financially sound decision, it would just mean more content to, you know, for Kingdom Hearts fans to enjoy. I don't know. Some people really don't like this idea. They really want this to be Tetsuya Nomura's thing all the way down the line, and when he's done with it, it's done forever. And on one hand, I do understand that, because you don't like seeing a franchise get long in the tooth. But I already feel like we've watched Tetsuya Nomura lose interest in it. I already feel like Kingdom Hearts 3 is him making a game he didn't want to make. I already feel like that was a game that he wasn't interested in making, and he had to.
Well, if you look at like the Yozora stuff, right? Like, and you look at the secret ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, it felt like he was like, the game I really want to be making is this, right? And not this third Kingdom Hearts game, but whatever Kingdom Hearts 4 and the ideas from Viram Rex and those sort of ideas. It seems like that's what he wanted to make from the start, but he had to make Kingdom Hearts 3 first in order to get there.
Yeah. Because he in Dream Drop Distance, this is again one of my biggest problems with that game, is that he foolishly outlined everything that had to happen in a game he wasn't going to be able to make for 7 years. So we all knew what was going to happen, and he didn't get to throw us any curveballs. And I also think about after he was taken off of co-director of 15, and he's like, I am currently pouring all of my rage into writing Kingdom Hearts 3. And I'm like, where was the rage? I played that game. Where was the anger? Where was the fury?
Yeah.
Where was that energy? It wasn't there. I don't know. I feel like we've seen what he wants to write. He likes writing angsty stories about people who are separated. I guess Versus was going to be about bros hanging out, but like the consistent thread of every single Kingdom Hearts game is teenagers who are friends get separated and then they're sad about it. That's what Kingdom Hearts 1 is about.
Well,
2, Chain of Memories, Birth by Sleep.
Yeah. Versus was also kind of going to be that with Stella.
With Stella, sure, you're right. With the bros, they were going to be together, but with Stella, you're right, absolutely right. Stella was absolutely going to be an extension of that. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 is like, oh shit. Because even like Dream Drop Distance, the distance in the title is the distance between Sora and Riku. I can't let them be together. They need to be in parallel dimensions, thinking about how much they love each other and how much they wish that they could be sword fighting right now. And I mean that in both senses of the word. But like how, like, I'm separated from my bro. And like, I know that he's always there for me and that we'll always support each other. But also, I wish that and then in Kingdom Hearts 3, it's like, oh shit, everybody's here. Riku's around, Sora's around, Kairi's around. I don't know how to write that. Okay, so Kairi goes in the pocket dimension until it's time for me to kill her and for Sora to be sad about that. And Riku, I kinda don't have anything else for him. He used to be like kind of edgy and he was going on an arc of self-discovery, but we definitely wrapped that up with Dream Drop Distance, so he's just kinda normal now. So he and Mickey are on exposition duty. And then at the end of the game, I'll kill Sora, and then everything will go back to the way it's supposed to be, baby.
Incredible.
That's I don't know. I could be totally wrong. I don't know Tetsuya Nomura. I hate like imposing authorial intent on people. It feels pretentious very often. You're usually wrong, but like that's the vibe I get looking at this man's body of work, is like everybody's like, oh, finally, Kingdom Hearts 3, the Avengers are going to get together. But he doesn't want to write a story about the Avengers. He wants to write a story about how the Avengers can't hang out. And it's so sad that they can't hang out. Yeah. But he's been setting up since the ending of Kingdom Hearts 2 that we were going to get the Avengers. So people were bummed when we didn't get it.
Yeah. It was kind of like, because the Kingdom Hearts 3 fan concept was essentially like, instead of maybe like Donald or Goofy, or they'd be there in some way, but like you'd have Riku and Kairi as party members, which I guess for a single game where you have 3 Keyblade wielders in a party, it would probably be too much. But holy crap, would it be awesome.
I feel like the solution to that, I wrote up like way back in 2019, maybe like a month after the game came out. I was on a film set I was still in college at the time. I was wrapping up. I was doing my last semester of college. I was on somebody else's set, and whatever I was doing at the time, I don't remember what I was doing. I don't think I was working audio on that set, a classmate of mine's. But whatever I was doing, it was a very late shoot. Like it was a night shoot, and I had many points where I was just like sitting around for hours with nothing to do, and I was like, I'm going to try rewriting. I'm going to do an outline of a rewrite of Kingdom Hearts 3. And there's a lot of things I don't like about that outline because it was just like something I just like figured out in my sleep deprived. I'm sitting in a corner, waiting to be called to go and help with this mindset. But the solution to that problem that I came up with was like, okay, Kairi and Riku are only party members on like this Disney World or that Disney World. Like, I think what I did was I sent Axel with Sora, Donald, and Goofy to Frozen because I don't have a party member there anywhere unless you count Marshmallow, which you only get in the last 2 minutes. I sent Axel with them on that mission, and I had Shion show up there for the first time instead of at the ending of the game. But he was just a party member on that world. I had Kairi as a party member on Tangled World, and I had Kairi as a party member on Pirates of the Caribbean World, and Riku was also there, but Riku wasn't a party member. The way that I made it was like, instead of his Keyblade getting broken, he just instantly gets a new one. I wanted to give him, something to do in the story. So his Keyblade gets broken, and it's like, oh, what happened? Well, it's supposed to be like a representation of his inner spirituality, and he's changed too much, so he needs to generate a new one, but he needs to figure out who he is now. So I sent all 3 of them to Pirates of the Caribbean World because, hey, the story started with them wanting to be on a pirate ship together. So they should go on an adventure together on a pirate ship. But to keep it simple, I said Riku doesn't have a sword. He gets one at the end, but only in like a cutscene. And then I think I also had Aqua be a party member for like one world. I'm not saying that was like, I fixed it, but like you were saying, maybe having them be party members for the entire game plus Donald and Goofy plus your Disney partners, that's crazy. That's too much. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So that was when I was like, what would be the solution? Maybe they're like, you have these supporting characters around for like one world, and maybe that works. Maybe that keeps it like scalable. Sorry, I'm done talking about that now. That was a tangent.
No, you're good. I think that's actually like a really good solution for that. And actually, hopefully, something that they explore in the future, because I do want them to be like legitimate party members you can fight alongside. So I want to talk about some Final Fantasy stuff now, because we're also kind of wondering what's going to happen there. So there were recent rumors that Final Fantasy IX Remake might be canceled. This was spread by Nate the Hate, but even he himself was like not entirely sure about the situation. What do you think is going on with FF9 Remake?
Oh boy. I don't know that I can theorize too much about this. Yeah. I feel like, because there was like news that there was a TV show happening. That was around the same time as the Nvidia leak that listed an FF9 remake. I feel like that might have been a larger project that got quietly canceled. A larger like FF9 media project that got swept under the rug. I mean, it may still be coming, but my thing is like, who would be making it? You know more about Square's team structures than I do. Who the hell could even be making Final Fantasy IX Remake? Who's around who could do that?
So according to the rumors, it was being handled by a third-party studio, which, yeah, we know the history there. CyberConnect 2 and Final Fantasy VII Remake, not a great situation. But it was supposed to be handled by a third party named Zine. It was outsourced to them, and apparently they got the... I can't remember what they've done.
It's fine. I'll look it up. You continue.
Chat could tell me. But so Zine was working on it, and according to the rumors, Square got the build back from them and was like, this is garbage. And so they pulled the game back in-house, and they were like, we're going to work on refining the game graphically, because apparently the issue was with the visuals. This all comes from, by the way, Midori, aka Ryan from the Bronx, and so somewhat questionable source, but that's who had initially said this, and so this is just the only information that we have on it. Going by that, they pulled it back in-house, but no one knows which creative studio it is. So some people are saying that they think it's Creative Studio 3. And part of that is because people that worked on Final Fantasy IX originally, some of them may still be around in Creative Studio 3. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know one of the artists actually recently became part of Creative Studio 3. So it's entirely possible that they're working on it. It's also not out of the question that it could be somewhere in CS 1 or 2. 2 being responsible for Dragon Quest, Team Asano, and Nier games, or it can be just yet another thing being handled by CS1, and CS1 is handling Final Fantasy VII Retrilogy, Kingdom Hearts 4, and I personally believe FF17, but that's a different story.
I feel like, I mean, I believe the NVIDIA leak. I believe that it was once in development because everything else on that NVIDIA leak turned out to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get things like everything else was like 100% true except for one game that was just a fluke. And then
I
also
think the
the other
important thing
database leak from Epic, right? You know?
I think the important thing to keep in mind is that we don't know the scale of the remake. Like, FF Tactics remake was part of that leak, right?
Yeah.
And now we've seen it, and that's not like a super robust remake. I don't want to like discredit the work that they are doing on it because they are doing a lot of work, but it's not like an FF7 remake scale project.
I don't know if they used like the language like remake though with Tactics. I do think it was actually listed as
in the
Tactics
leak
Remastered. It might
okay.
have actually been. I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that was listed as Tactics Remaster. Yeah, it
Okay.
even says here in an article, Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster. So yeah, it was listed as a remaster.
Well, still could just, I mean, even if that leak is accurate, it could have just been a semantics issue. You never know.
Right.
We've discussed previously, I feel like if they do a 9 remake, they will not go the trilogy route. They will keep it simple. It will be a lighter touch up of the original game, and it will be one entry. Or I don't know, they might have started the plan when Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 made a shitload of money. And they were like, that's the way to go. And maybe then Rebirth didn't do as well as they expected it to, and they went, maybe we shouldn't. I don't know.
Right.
I don't have too much thoughts on this. I think you followed these stories closer than I have. And I don't really know what to say about
No, it's fair.
rumors on this. So I'd like to hear anything else that you have to say about it, but I don't think I have much to contribute on this one.
I think it is still in development. I don't think that they canceled it, but I would probably say that it is in development hell. So there is some stuff going seriously wrong with it, and if Ryan from the Bronx is to be believed, even though a very dubious person, they have reported a lot of accurate information, and so it's very possible that what they're reporting there is pretty accurate. And it also follows the exact same thing that's kind of happened before, where Square, entrusted some other outsourcing company to do this big remake for them, and then it turned out less than stellar. So I don't want to say like I believe the rumor baselessly, but it does seem to be the thing that makes the most sense given the information that we have and what the holdup is.
I don't necessarily disagree with that, but almost like the fact that they made, quote, the same mistake again almost makes it less credible to me because they did so publicly and so strongly make the mistake that I feel like they wouldn't have done it again. But
right.
I don't know.
But at the same time,
I guess what you were talking about, that they said
Yeah.
out loud, we canceled millions of dollars worth of stuff. That makes it credible that it was around and maybe it doesn't exist anymore. But
right. Yeah,
so
and I
say at
mean,
the same time.
at the same time, though, outsourcing these remakes is like incredibly common practice.
I get that too.
Yeah, like it's super
again,
common.
it depends on the scale of the project, and we just don't know. If they were planning on something
Right.
remake scale, I feel like outsourcing it is stupid. If they're planning on something more like FF Tactics, then outsourcing it makes sense. I don't know. Here's the game with updated, redone backgrounds and voice acting and balancing tweaks, and retextured overworld. Like if it's not that crazy, if it's if it's like a much more intense refresh than just like the version they released on PS4 and PC, then it would still maybe count as a remake. But if it's not the scale of FF7 remake, I don't know, it could be outsourced. I really should not be throwing my hat in the ring on this one.
So let's talk about scale actually for
Okay.
a second, because I think
I love scale.
I love scale too. I think this is a point that you brought up in the last time we had a conversation when we were talking about Final Fantasy, because we were talking about sales for like the mainline series. And my favorite thing that you said during that conversation was you're competing with Sonic, not Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And that was still like really funny to me because I went back and I was rewatching our previous stream before before we did this one, and I was like, I have to include this in there because that was so funny and such a good tangent. So I kind of want to follow up on that.
Mm-hmm.
I want chat to brace for impact because I'm going to bring up a thing, and I know people don't like me bringing up, or anyone really bringing up this thing. I don't really bring it up too often, but I do think that there is like a valuable point of discussion here, right? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not just bringing this up to be like Final Fantasy bad or anything like that. Although I do know a lot of people use it for that purpose. There have been a lot of comparisons to Clair Obscur. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that Clair Obscur is actually good for Final Fantasy. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is the FF killer. Sam Falls made it over for FF." But I actually think that they did the opposite. I think that they showed that you can make a Final Fantasy like, and you could do it really cheap,
Mm-hmm.
and you can do it actually relatively fast because they set their studio up in 2020 over COVID, and then they
Mm-hmm.
got the game out in 5 years. The game was basically finished in 4 years, and like the last year was just the polishing and the QA. So that actually kind of shows like, hey, you can make something that people like identify as the Final Fantasy brand. It can be
Mm-hmm.
super successful, right? Like last sales posting we got was 3.3 million. It's probably way past that now. It's probably close to 5 million. And that doesn't include Game Pass because it's available for all subscribers there for free. So you probably got like a few million people on that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, um, again, to be clear, not to bring that up to be like, Clair Obscur good, Final Fantasy bad, or Final Fantasy needs to become it. But I do think it highlights an interesting point that you could make an FF game for like much cheaper. So, in a concrete sense, what do you think they should be doing to cut back? Like, should they be doing something like what a lot of people imagine Final Fantasy IX Remake is, where it is, again, according to rumors from journalists who saw it, it is more of a turn-based game. We presume that because it is like more of an actual remake, that it is using stuff like a world map instead of you know um,
Mm-hmm.
a fully realized open world, something
Yeah.
like Rebirth,
Yeah.
right? And again, I'm a huge fan of Rebirth. We were glazing that game all throughout the pre-stream here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I have no
No,
problems with
absolutely,
like
absolutely.
I have no problems whatsoever with FF17 essentially being built off of that model. And in fact, I kind of hope for it in a lot of ways. But if scaling back is like what we're gonna do you think that is also a valid path for that, or do you think that they should scale back in other ways? Do you have thoughts
Very,
on this?
very tiny side note. Talking about,
Yeah.
FF17 could build off of Rebirth, not have to have an open
Mm-hmm.
world, an overworld. I think you could do the maps of FF7 Rebirth and still have an overworld map, because one of the problems that I do have with Rebirth is that by making it so that you can walk from one end of the world to the other with no load times, suddenly it seems like the entire world of Final Fantasy VII is the size of like your hometown. Like according to the story of Rebirth, the sea between the continents is a massive body of water that takes a day and a night to traverse by boat. But according to the gameplay of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, that sea can be crossed in a busted up, wrecked seaplane in like 2 minutes.
All
So
right.
there's no reason that you can't be like, we are on the overworld and we're walking across an entire continent. And then we hit the part of the continent where important stuff is happening and it zooms in and it's a map the size of the grasslands from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. There's no reason you can't do both. But sorry, to back up to what we're actually talking about here, talking about scale. To clarify for anybody who maybe doesn't remember or wasn't there at all, when I made that joke about Sonic, what I was talking about was uh, the actual sales numbers and popularities of franchises versus budgets, which is that once upon a time, Final Fantasy was the most popular video game franchise like in the world. Almost. It was number 2 on the PlayStation behind Gran Turismo. That's pretty big. Still pretty big in the PS2 era. Not so much later. But Square is still budgeting and still fighting for the number 1 spot. They're spending
Mm-hmm.
money like they're coming out in the fall, throwing punches at Call of Duty, but they're not, because the sales numbers that they're putting up are in the ballpark of, if not lower than, Sonic Frontiers, a game which falls apart while you are playing it. That's not, I don't mean that as a big dig against Frontiers, because that game was good, but like, you'll be running along as Sonic, and then suddenly a wall will just appear in front of you that didn't load in properly. My point is that game, I don't know. Actually, Sonic Frontiers probably cost a lot because it took them a long time to figure out how to make it, because they'd been, sucking hard for years. So that game probably costs Sega way more than it should have. But imagine how much money that game looks like it cost without factoring in a massive R&D period and reworking their entire game design. And it probably costs like a fifth of what any given recent Final Fantasy game did, if not more. And it sold more. So the reality is, this is not a hole you can spend yourself out of. You need to be competing for those 5 million sales, not budgeting and building for 15 million, 10 million sales. So that's what I was talking about with the Sonic comparison versus a Call of Duty comparison. I also asked you in that video to put in like a clip of like, oh wow, look at the Titan fight. It's so amazing. Oh my God. I'm so glad they spent all this money. Now I, a gamer who's wowed by amazing graphics, really wants to buy this game, right? Okay, now put on the clip of the train crash from Call of Duty World War II on PS4, which is a game that releases annually. It's a, anyway, Clair, Obscur, and Scale. Like you said, a lot of people are being very negative, and they're like, oh, bad, that people are comparing it to Clair, Obscur. Or they're going, every Final Fantasy game should be like this. It should be, we see it can go back to being turn-based with cool parrying. And you've also got people being like, every turn-based game would be good if it had parrying, which is also not true. I think what Clair, Obscur has done, what Expedition 33 has done, is it has created a sample market. It has demonstrated perfectly what the segment is, with no brand value whatsoever, out of nowhere, new IP, with a particular game design, particular kind of music, a particular vibe to it. It came out, and it sold this many units. The Final Fantasy brand is both good and bad right now. People know it. A lot of people think very positively of it. A lot of people also think that's like an old game for grandpas that hasn't been good if it was ever good. So you've got a mixture of brand value with the name Final Fantasy that both helps you sell units and stops you from selling units. There are probably people who looked at Final Fantasy 16 who, if that had been a new IP, would have bought it. And they didn't because it said Final Fantasy on the cover. There are also people who never would have bought that game if it hadn't said Final Fantasy on the cover. So my point is, right now, with where they are on their brand equity, it's kind of like the positive and negatives, I think, are kind of canceling each other out. Which means I don't think really that if you compare it to a Clair, Obscur, which is a totally new IP, it's actually that different of a potential market segment. I think actually the ooh of a new IP is equivalent to the and of a brand like Final Fantasy. I think that Clair, Obscur shows you this is how much money you can make. This is how many units you can sell until conditions change. And I think that they could go and make a turn-based game with high-quality visuals that was on the shorter side, that was budgeted a little more conservatively, and get it out there and do well off of the back of this game. The big problem is studio structure. Is we just canceled 160 million games worth of games. Projects. $160 million worth of projects. My brain couldn't get there. Okay, so now what are they doing? Okay, well, we're focusing on quality over quantity. What does that mean? Your problem was already that you're putting out one Final Fantasy game every 17 years. So now you're going to do it even less frequently? Or is it just that you're going to shave off the Foam Stars and the Valkyrie Elysium or whatever that game was called? Clearly you're not shaving off too much because you just started marketing Adventures of Elliot. But like, you can't, but they also aren't firing these people. They've canceled all these projects that they spent apparently in the ballpark of $160 million on already, but they didn't lay people off. Are all of those people going to get consolidated into making the next Final Fantasy even more expensive, so it has to sell even more units? Or are they going to chop these groups up and make more games? That kind of sounds like the opposite of what they want to do. But to me, I really think the smart thing would be 2D HD Studio. They should be making a Final Fantasy game in their style. Creative Business Unit 3. They should be making a Final Fantasy game in their style. Once Creative Business Unit 1 is done with Remake, they should be making a Final Fantasy in their style. There should be another team somewhere that's making a game that's ripping off Clair Obscur. It's fine. You can do it. You started out ripping off Dragon Quest. You can rip off somebody who's ripping you off. It's cool. and all 4 of those should be in development, and we should get one every like year and a half. We should get that 2D HD game in a reasonable amount of time, and it should be short and sweet, and it should be sold for like $40 to $50. We should get that Clair Obscur ripoff that maybe is a little bit more niche because it's turn-based or whatever, but it's developed for a reasonable amount, and like Clair Obscur, it's not 600 hours long, and it comes out, probably they won't sell it for $50. They'll sell it for $70. So I get that. The 2D HD one, maybe they could parse that one back. But like, they need to be putting out, this is what we were talking about before, is like the problem with Final Fantasy is I legitimately think the diversity of visions was what made the brand explode. That you could get, in the course of 4 years, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy IX, and Final Fantasy X. None of those games look anything like each other, have vibes anything like one another. So if Final Fantasy VII didn't get you, but maybe Final Fantasy VIII does, you play that and go, I love this, I'm going to try the other ones. Maybe you tried Final Fantasy VIII but didn't like it, but then 9 comes out and you love that, now you're going to stick around for 10. But if you only get to fire one diverse, bold new vision shot every 6 years and you miss, you're boned forever.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Octopath Traveler was not called Final Fantasy. I do not understand why Bravely Default was not called Final Fantasy. I don't understand why they can't get out of their own way on this. And they probably need to drop Roman numerals.
Well,
I think that's the way you scale it.
What's interesting about what happens now is that the game that kind of looks and plays more like what people have commonly expected from Final Fantasy gets called something else. But then the thing that is nothing like the traditional expectations of Final Fantasy gets called Final Fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And so they kind of basically force the people who are looking for a certain thing out of the franchise. And so you're upsetting the unks, the old people, the boomers. You're making them mad, but then you're also not really drawing in a big enough new audience at the same time to counter the fact that all the old people are super fucking pissed, right? And so the end result ends up being that you have all these people who are mad, and maybe a certain percentage of the people who have been playing Final Fantasy games since the 90s or early 2000s who do like the new vision are willing to give it a try. And then I think that's like the general synopsis for like why we see like the downward trend on it. I have kind of come to a place where I do feel like that I don't think that Final Fantasy should scale down to maybe necessarily like to be fully AA. It should still keep some AAA production values, but I think that it should definitely cost less to make. And I think one of the moments for me that really set in, like, like, what are we doing, was when I was doing some research for a video and I saw that each one of the icon fights took 10 to 12 months to make. 10 to 12 months. And in that time, I know that's like one of the core draws of that game. But how often are you really doing an icon fight, right? And how long are you really doing an icon fight, right? And
you made Final Fantasy VII in its entirety in only a slightly more time than that.
Yeah. And yeah, that's actually a good point. And not only that, but they weren't even able to do all those fights internally, right?
Yeah.
So they had to have Platinum doing some of these fights, and they basically had to pull, Kingdom Hearts' dev team off for a little while in order to work on some of these icon fights, which, I don't want to just say that like, hey, maybe that interfered with like Kingdom Hearts 4. We just don't know actually, but that also probably could have took away from that. I'm not saying that definitively because I don't know their team structure. Maybe it didn't touch anything at all, but there's also the possibility that it did. In other words, basically, it was super expensive and super time consuming, and I just cannot help but think, like for something that you do for such a small percentage of the game and how extraordinarily costly it was, costly to the point of where we could look at other points in that game and think, oh, the budget kind of ran a little bit thin here, right? Like we can look at some of the facial animations and like some of the cutscenes and stuff. There's an extraordinary amount of B tier cutscenes in there, and what I mean by B tier cutscenes is that game development, they tend to have two different tiers of cutscenes, or sometimes three even. One is where like things are like fully animated, looks very cinematic, and then the other tier is just like NPC side quest dialogue where you have like the camera just going back and forth between two characters, and they're doing very stock animations in order to kind of cover the gap. And so I'm like, I can't help but wonder if stuff like that, like not focusing the budget in like those big chunks, would not have helped
This is precisely why I didn't know this 10 to 12 month number for each icon fight, but this is precisely why I made the comparison to the Call of Duty train crash.
Right.
Like, okay, like again, this is from a business standpoint. I'm not talking about art. If you, in your heart of hearts, desperately want to make a video game where giant kaijus fight each other, you do what you need to do to get that money to make that game. But if we're talking about a company that needs to sell more copies, because if they don't sell more copies, they can't make another game next year. The icon fights look cool because they can go in a trailer and look cool. Because the icon fights are so impressive that we will definitely sell 10 million units this time. Definitely going to do it because they look that good. But again, that game came out in whenever it came out. What was that, like 2 years ago now? A time I don't understand time anymore. 2024, is that when that game came out?
23.
23? Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Whereas Call of Duty World War II came out in 2017. That was why I made that specific example with the train crash. That scene is stupid, and it's like a throwaway scene in that game. It's probably not even the most impressive scene in that game. It's just like a thing that happens, and then on to the next exciting level. No need to spend 10 hours making a boat engine. And they make one of those every year. And so the average gamer man who plays Call of Duty every year is not going to be impressed by they see the Titan fight in the trailer and go, I gotta buy this. They're just not. So if the point of the point of having all those fights and spending 10 to 12 months on them is to sell more units and finally get Final Fantasy back to its rightful place on top, it's not gonna work. It just isn't. Right. And if, God, 10 to 12 months, I would have cut one. You could not have convinced me not to cut one if I was in charge of that.
In that same interview, actually, they do mention that they still had to cut quite a bit. And I think, again,
I guess they cut the Leviathan, right?
Well, I wouldn't say Leviathan. I would say, like, I feel like Odin and I don't know if I would say Ultima fully, because that did have like a lot of
you're right. Because you don't really have an icon fight with Odin, not really, not in the same way that you do with the other ones.
Right, like the spectacle peaks at Bahamut, like hard. Like that's like where after that it did kind of like taper off, like with how much budget they were actually putting into those. So again, that's not to say that like those icon fights weren't like a work of art, like in their own sense. I definitely don't disagree. But when we're talking about the allocation of this, and again, I hate to have like this conversation because it's it's like a business conversation, right? Like, and I like art.
You can't like make art. You can't make art if you can't eat.
Right, and that's the thing, right? Is that art is about creative solutions, oftentimes with limitations that are hard to get around, right? So you have to like think about like like problem solving essentially is
Yeah.
like a core aspect of art.
Yeah.
And so
And people, and that's and like, and it's. I mean, it's better than it's ever. I mean, I know it doesn't feel like it, but it really is. Like, people are like, oh, capitalism is ruining art. It's like, well, before capitalism, if you were an artist, you were being paid by like one rich person to make what they wanted, and if they were really generous, then you got to do like a one for you, one for me type setup. Like,
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I mean, we do get to chase whatever artistic bliss we want now, and then if the market wants it, we can make it. Like, that is good. It's bad that sometimes we can't make exactly what we want, but it's not like there was. It's not like in communist Russia. They were like, yeah, you can spend as much government money as you want on that icon. I'm not trying to sound like, oh yes, capitalism, a flawless system, everything always goes great for everybody. But like, as much as I'm talking about, like, oh, you can't make art if you can't eat. It's not just a problem with capitalism. Like, somebody has to want to, if you're going to spend all day painting, somebody has to wants to come and drop food on your doorstep to allow you to do that.
Right. And that's kind of under any system for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
but that's my point. Like, I know, like, it is a business discussion, and we wish we could talk about art in a vacuum. But when your art is employing hundreds of people, it's not just about having a wacky woohoo pizza time with your giant kaijus anymore. You got to think about whether or not those people are going to be able to send their kids to school next year. It becomes a different thing, which maybe isn't a fun discussion for a wacky haha video game show on YouTube. But that is the case.
Well, and this is also why I have like recently become a little bit more open to FF games, like having turn-based combat again, which I know has been like strangely like maybe like one of my most controversial takes, which is like I am like I'm like very rebirth pilled, like in terms of combat. I think that system is like so good.
It's amazing.
Yeah, like I could not be like more rebirth pilled.
My only complaint with that game was that they ruined Cloud's Punisher counter, which I loved in Remake, and then it feels like so spongy and doesn't work in Rebirth. But that's my only complaint with that game from a gameplay standpoint. It's amazing.
They made it like a little bit more. They did some other stuff though to like try to balance it out, like the perfect parries that you can do and things like that. So they kind of work some things around. But I'm cool with that. So like,
I cut you off. I apologize. Yeah. Keep going.
No, you're good. Like in my ideal world, we kind of continue with like Rebirth was kind of setting up for, because I think that they were like actually modernizing the things that people like about FF rather than trying to explain in interviews why the things that you like about FF can't happen anymore. We can't do airships anymore. We can't do controllable party members anymore. All that stuff actually has to go. It doesn't fit like our vision for like a modern game. And that's actually kind of been the issue I've been having with a lot of modern FF, is that like rather than attempting to adapt this stuff, they try to explain why we don't actually need it anymore, or why it doesn't fit the vision of current FF, right? So,
and I think this is an area where people get something twisted. There was a recent interview with somebody, I forget who, but somebody talking about like it annoys me, an old head who used to make games in the PlayStation days. Like, it annoys me that people like warping pixelated PS1 graphics, and they say that they're charming and classic. Because we worked really hard to get that to stop happening.
Yeah, it was a Final Fantasy X programmer, I believe.
That's we worked really hard to push graphics beyond that point. It was backbreaking work to get that art to a higher level of quality, and now people say they like how that janky stuff looks. That frustrated us so much because we felt like our artistic vision wasn't being realized. I think that there are a lot of people who think that Final Fantasy is the way it is now because someone in a C-suite somewhere is pointing down at the developers and saying, you are not allowed to make turn-based games because they don't make enough money. I think most of the people in charge at Square want to be making action games, including the directors. Tetsuya Nomura was making turn-based games, and the market for turn-based games wasn't gone when he made Kingdom Hearts 1, but he went, I love Mario 64. I'd love to make a Mario 64 RPG, right? I think that they want to be making Rebirth or FF16 in terms of combat. And then it's the younger guys who are coming in at the bottom and getting shuffled over to Tokyo RPG Factory or 2D HD, who are like, I really like turn-based games. I want to make that stuff. I think that this is actually not as commercial as people think it is. I think it's people who have been making games for decades, and they've seen the machines get... It's like, okay, imagine, if you will, that you build and drive cars in the 20s, and you're young when that's happening, and you're old enough to get to like Formula One racing in like the 60s, 70s. And somehow magically your body is still okay to be in that car, driving that F1 car, making that car faster and faster, making the technology better. You're like, this is fun. Oh my God, I didn't even know that it could be this good. I thank God that I lived long enough to get to make and drive a car like this. And then you get out of the car after setting your best lap time ever. You're like, what did you think of that? And then a bunch of kids look at you and go, I kind of like the cars you had to like stick the thing in the front and crank to get it started. And I liked how they vibrated so much that they broke your back. I thought that was really charming.
Based.
I think this is a perspective that we don't really see from the outside looking in.
Right. No, I do think that makes sense. But I would have to do like a little bit of pushback though on the idea that the higher ups are not like, we need to go action, because
there's definitely an element of that.
Right.
I'm just saying there may be another angle.
Right. I mean, in a way too, it's also kind of why we've seen like a lot of homogenizing happening with video games in general, that like a certain type of third person action with parry mechanics and a dodge like has basically become every single game ever at this point. It's kind of because we determined that is the game that sells, and so everyone tries to essentially make that game. And the publishing director of Baldur's Gate 3, who is a joy to follow on Twitter, he even was kind of talking about this too when he's talking about, getting Baldur's Gate 3 out, where, a lot of people in like the publishing pipeline were basically like, turn-based RPG is not going to sell at all. And even Microsoft, when they saw BG3, they basically were like, turn-based, we'll give you like $5 million for it. Now, if they would have put they would have took the $5 million and put it on Game Pass. It would have been like the worst business deal in the history of business deals, maybe ever. Yeah. But thankfully they didn't take that deal because they believed in their game. Yeah. So there's definitely still like there are still definitely people higher up in the pipeline who just absolutely are just not interested in working on and publishing turn-based games for sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, part of the reason that we're in the situation in the industry that we are right now is because the development costs ballooned so much that we need to make something that can hit the broadest audience possible, so everything turns into a third-person action game. And I think that actually that's one of the optimistic things about what's happening in the market right now. Even though people are getting laid off and studios are getting closed and games are getting canceled, I think it's potentially leaning towards something positive, because to vastly summarize everything that's been happening in a very complicated, evolving business for the last 5 years. COVID hit. Games are selling more than ever. Oh my God, games are super popular. We all need to spend money on games. Today, games are bigger than they were in 2020. It may seem hard to believe. There is still more money going in. The problem is, it is going into fewer places than ever before. It is going into Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite, Call of Duty, and Grand Theft Auto Online, which is a game that is 12 years old and also sucks.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto Online, this was an item from Take-Two's shareholder report like 2 weeks ago. Grand Theft Auto Online grew 50% compared to last year. That game is 12 years old and sucks! And they picked up 50% more users this year compared to where they were last year. Now, granted, that's off the back of the GTA 6 trailers, but it still happened. More money's being spent, but it's going to like 15 games. And there's less money to go around for your new $60 single-player video game. People are buying fewer of them, even though there's more money going into the market in general. So what that is actually, I think, going to lead to, with we're seeing these studios get consolidated, we're seeing Xbox cancel its biggest games, like Perfect Dark, but not a lot of its smaller projects. I think people are realizing when you've got a Clair Obscur or a Baldur's Gate, which goes after a very specific segment and offers something that nobody else has right now, it'll do well. When you're trying to offer something that you can play in Fortnite, why would I buy it if I can play it in Fortnite or Roblox? So that's actually something I think to be optimistic about in terms of where single-player games could go in the coming years. Is I think there are going to be fewer third-person generic action games than maybe there have been in recent years, and you'll see more daring and bold visions that are trying to carve out a very specific part of the market. And that's why I think that's the takeaway from a Clair Obscur and a Baldur's Gate. Isn't necessarily that you should spend Call of Duty money making a Baldur's Gate. It's that you should spend what money you have making a Baldur's Gate. And Baldur's Gate is maybe an exception that they had that much money.
Right. And that's also, another point too, is that, man, you seriously cannot follow the trend. You kind of just have to do a thing, Yeah. Because if you're following the trend, by the time the game comes out, the trend's already over. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's crazy how different it is between even games and movies. Because even with movies getting more VFX heavy, you can still go from deciding I want to make a movie to having a movie out in like 2 years. Yeah. You can't even, like, it's taken Toby Fox like 10 years to make Deltarune.
Yeah. It's insane, man. And so you kind of just have to like make, something that no one is even thinking about currently, So I don't know. The only reason, kind of going back to the Final Fantasy and like turn-based and action, like the only reason I would propose it, again, because I'm very Rebirth build on combat, but the only reason I'd propose it is just because, one, they could put it out, it'd be cost effective.
It's built.
Yeah, it'd be super cost effective. Two, they would also get praised for it, like super praised for it. Like,
oh yeah,
everyone would be like, "Oh, this is the great return to like Final Fantasy to turn-based," and like, it'd be nothing but like praise and bias toward it. And three, they don't have a need to poach as much talent as they currently do, because right now, every time they work on like a new action system, they're like, we need to steal somebody from Capcom in order to make it.
just recycle it.
Because they don't have the internal know-how in order to make those games. Perhaps they do now, from having those top Capcom people there, teaching them and directing them for the on the correct path. But traditionally speaking, this was stuff that they simply didn't even know how to make.
Yeah, and if you've nailed it, why start over?
Right. So, that's. But again, Final Fantasy 17 will come out, and it will be something completely different. So I'm gonna ask you a personal question, just straight up. What do you want from FF17?
From FF17?
Yeah, just make some shit up.
I want to see artists who have a distinctive vision get to realize that vision. To me, the appeal of Final Fantasy has always been getting to see somebody play around with franchise money for what is essentially a new IP. And that's what's difficult about this conversation, because I'm basically saying Final Fantasy shouldn't be spending franchise money anymore. But I guess what I would want to see from Final Fantasy 17 is to see it announced at the same time as Final Fantasy 18, and both of them to have release dates that they stick to within the next 2 to 3 years. That's what I want more than anything. I think what that franchise needs, because for me to get, whatever I want out of that series, to get a really cool, interesting game out of that series, they need to be making more of them. They need to not be putting out one every 7 years, and they need to not be quite as dependent upon their best stuff being a remake of their best game from 20 years ago. And also on that note, like, because I saw somebody in chat a second ago say that my car analogy was terrible because, like, of course, cars just get linearly better, whereas older, clunkier games, like, they do have a timelessness and a charm and a nuance to them. It's like, well, first of all, there are people who would right now tell you that cars from the 80s were just better than cars that are made today. There are people who would just make that argument. And second of all, I wasn't arguing that from a consumer's perspective. I was saying that that's how the people who are making the games feel. They feel like when they made Final Fantasy VII, they were painting with half the colors missing. Right? Like, what they wanted to do was they were constantly being constrained by the technology. And right now they can do whatever they want. They can make it as fast as they want and as sleek and as shiny as they want. And to them, the restraints of turn-based combat was like, ATB was always, we'd really kind of like to be making a really big action game, but we can't. The only way we can make a story of the length that we want with a world of the scale that we want is with instanced battles. But we want them to be faster and more exciting, so ATB became a thing. I say this with regards to, that's why I want the diversity of vision in Final Fantasy has always been what's cool to me about it. And you've got, I guarantee you, young people who have a different take on the stories and the worlds and art and an exciting new vision that they want to share for Final Fantasy, who also like turn-based combat, who like systems-heavy turn-based combat with deep character and party customization. And those guys are not going to get a turn until Kitase and Nomura and Naoki Yoshida and Toriyama all decide that they're retired. Unless they decide they can make more than one Final Fantasy game a decade.
Right.
So I would like to see them... Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, a fun thing to, like, follow up what you were saying about the car analogy was kind of the younger staff, like, for Final Fantasy VII Re-Trilogy, right? Where they were actually far more conservative about the new changes to the game than the established veteran staff. They were like, we probably shouldn't change this story element or this gameplay element. And, Kitase and Nomura were like, yeah, we can go ahead and change this shit. Like, we made it. It's our thing. Yeah, let's go ahead and do it differently. Whereas the young guys come in and they're like, no. Yeah.
People who create art, I think we have an idea that they're all pretentious, smug people who think that what they're doing is so important. But, like, again, when you got to eat, like, you crank out that book and you're on to the next thing, and you got to write the next one, And there was probably stuff about that book you didn't like, but you couldn't figure out how to fix it, and the book's out now, And then when you write that book and everyone says, it's a masterpiece, it's the greatest book ever written, like, you're like, okay, I got to write the next one, though. I still got to feed myself. And I really didn't like, everybody says that chapter 7 of that book was the best part. I hated it. I reworked it 17 times and I still didn't like it. So yeah, you get guys who are like, yeah, I made Final Fantasy VII. There's things I would have done differently with it. I'd really like to do something different now. And then you get the young guys going, no, don't do that. I think that I want a diversity of vision. And that only happens if they're making more games, and they're making more games cheaply. I think that you could still do... I think that the ideal path is Creative Business Unit 1 uses the Remake structure, the Remake gameplay style, Remake programming, Remake assets, steal some assets from any other Unreal games that you guys have developed in-house. Just go ahead and steal assets from FF16, doesn't matter. I think that Creative Business Unit 1 should use that template, and they should make every 4 to 5 years the big marquee expensive Final Fantasy game. And you've also got FF14 plugging along next to it. And in the intervening time, you get a 2D HD game, you get a Clair Obscur style, and you've got a Final Fantasy game coming out every year and a half. You need to get back to that energy of, holy shit, I can't believe they just announced 10, 11, and 12 at the same time. That's so nutty. And then you need to not actually wait 5 years to get 12 out, theoretically. And that's hard to do. That's a hard proposition to walk in and say, you've just got to make games at this cadence, and they also have to be good. Because if you screw up twice in a row with this model, you're toast. Like, you've seriously damaged your brand. And their whole thing of, we want to focus on quality over quantity, runs counter to what I'm talking about. But I don't know. I think that they could release... I think Final Fantasy XVII could be the best game they've ever made. And I think right now it would be hard for it to get through the noise. And I think if they spent the amount of money that they're normally spending on these games, it would be hard for it to make its money back. I think that it would be smarter to make more of them of diverse scales. But anyway, yeah, that's so I don't want to talk too much about, what I would do with Final Fantasy 17 or what I really want to see specifically out of it, because it's somebody else's artistic vision. It's not mine. But that's what I would want to see is I want to see them announce two of them, and they're both coming out within the next, I don't know, 2 years. And not just fall 2027. Like, give me a date and stick to it. That's what would excite me more than anything right now.
For sure, because I think that's the only way to do we're going to do a different thing each time type structure, because otherwise you're going to alienate some people, and then you're going to lose, you're going to gain some other people, and it'll just net even, it'll never create like a big wave. So
yeah.
Let's go ahead and take some chat questions to round this thing out. Do you guys want Kazuya Takahashi to return for FF17 as the main artist? It doesn't seem like Nomura will return for future games considering that he's so busy. This comes from Lift T. You can answer this one first if you got
I don't have a robust opinion on his artwork. I liked his work on 16. I thought the character designs were pretty solid. And I'm perfectly happy with other people taking a crack at this. Again, I've talked many times before, but I think Nomura's overworked. Again, diversity of visions. I'm perfectly happy with other people taking a shot at things.
Yeah, I kind of want to see someone new for 17, actually. Like, I kind of want to see someone new, and someone really young, actually, because I think that we should probably be looking for someone who's going to have the next type of Nomura, like, impact on the art of FF,
who's going to have the new brand,
right?
For
the new
3 games in a row.
Right, the new look of Final Fantasy, in the same way that we
doesn't even need to be in a row, because he established the look for 7 and then 8, and then somebody else did 9, and then he did 10, and then somebody else did 12, and he did 13. But yeah, we need that new bold voice,
right?
And that could be the 16 designer. Could be anybody. Just got to give him a chance.
Yeah. I wasn't like, I think I like a lot of Kazuya Takahashi's work on 14 more than 16, because I feel like there were maybe a handful of like really standout designs from 16, but most of them I kind of just felt like this is okay.
I feel like the marching orders on that game were specifically, people make fun of us for our outlandish character designs. We need to reel it in a little bit.
I feel like it was more than him.
Yeah, I feel like that whole game was about filing off the rough edges, that they were the perceived rough edges.
Right, because if you look at his work on 14, I like his work on 14 so much more than I like his work on 16. But again, 14 actually does like kind of lead into, this is Final Fantasy. We're gonna make like these much more expressive designs. Whereas
belts and necklaces and asymmetry and everything else. And 16 was kind of like, okay, we're trying to convince people, we're having problems pulling people in. We need to make something a little bit more typically fantasy while still having the Final Fantasy touch. And maybe that was asking too much of everybody involved to try and to thread that needle.
Precisely. So let's go through some other questions.
I also like, somebody in chat mentioned Roberto Ferrari. He did great concept artwork for 15. Great supplemental character work for 7. I do like his work quite a bit. He commented a while ago that he'd love to work on a Kingdom Hearts game. I remember him saying that in an interview, and that was another point in my favor. My thing of like, I really wish Tetsuya Nomura would let anybody else like grip the reins on Kingdom Hearts, because there's literally a talented artist working for them right now who's like, I would love to design characters for Kingdom Hearts, and I'm like, I know that that's never gonna happen.
yeah, I know, and he would do such a great job, because all the characters that he designs, I think he's legitimately like one of their best designers, and he's kind of criminally underutilized at the moment.
I think he's fantastic.
With optimization issues with Unreal Engine, do you think Square Enix should make a new engine for Final Fantasy? No.
No!
No. Listen, there's like, yeah, sure. Like if you look at Final Fantasy VII Re-Trilogy, there is like a lot of like let's just say some technical jank with like textures and like some of the look of the game. But the game is out. And Rebirth came out in like record time. And like when you
Yeah.
like if you're literate on the history, like I'll take the fucking jank. I'll take the door texture not loading sometimes. I'll take like this shit ass lighting and like all the other stuff.
I'd like to play the video game. Who
Yeah.
gives a shit about all that? I like to play the game.
Yeah. It looks
Oh,
good when it
wow.
looks good, and sometimes it does look bad. But like, 7 or 8 times out of 10 it looks good. Just don't zoom
That
in.
must have been one of your viewers, because if it was one of my viewers, it would have been, that question was like bait.
Right. I mean, I actually have like a very specific video on this coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
It is like 20 plus minutes, so I think it'll like it'll solve their question there.
Mech Trap Rack. Capcom gets to have an original engine because they're on a generational run right now.
Yeah.
They
also
the
their
proof is in the
engines
pudding.
work.
They pulled it off. Their engines
Their
work.
engines
Square's
work.
don't.
Yeah.
Though I do think it's funny because one of the things that one of the items in our discussion list that you jumped over, maybe to save a bit of time, was regarding
Yeah.
like scaling, remake, rebirth. Like that seems to happen really fast. The
Yeah.
last time that we tried this was with like Lightning Returns, and the sales diminished super harshly on those sequels. But my thing that's more interesting to me about those sequels than their sales is that realistically, if you had released Final Fantasy 13-2 as a new game, that was a new IP, like you just like had recycled all those assets, but just made some new characters and a new story, some people would have been miffed, like, oh, look, I've seen those enemy designs before. But like us Final Fantasy 14 players, we're killing the same enemies from 13, 12, and 11 that we've been killing for 20 years, And if it was a totally new... If Final Fantasy 13-2's budget and resources had been making Final Fantasy 15, for example. If they just like, we're going to make a totally new game using crystal tools, using 2-party members and a Pokemon system, and we're going to recycle assets from FF13. They could have had a totally new game done in 2 years. Because they made that game in like 2 years. And Final Fantasy 13-2 is huge. And I mean, it reuses a lot of assets, but it reuses like 0 maps. It's a totally different gameplay system, really. Like, they once upon a time knew how to scale these things. I feel like if they had just bit the bullet and said, we don't care that people are going to notice we've reused the same assets, let's just make 10-2 into a new game. Let's make 13-2 into a totally new game. That's why you and I are so game on that Creative Business Unit 1 just needs to go straight from Remake Trilogy to a new game, reusing all of their assets, reusing all of their gameplay systems, reusing all of their code. Just go make another one, because I mean, obviously you can't make a game in 2 years anymore. But the fact that they made 13-2 in 2 years and then they made Lightning Returns in 2 years is deeply impressive. And I feel like it maybe won't be as crazy, but we could get back to that. And if you're releasing a new diverse vision every year, who cares if you reused some assets? Especially if the point is that, 8 didn't appeal to some people, but 9 does. If we're in the universe of, 17 didn't appeal to some people, but 18's totally different, 19's totally different, reuse those assets.
Yeah.
Reuse all that work.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing too, right? Is that at the same time we had 7 Re-Trilogy and 16 in development, right? So both of them needed a Marlboro, because Marlboro is an iconic Final Fantasy enemy. Except the Marlboro in Final Fantasy VII Remake and the Marlboro in Final Fantasy XVI are 2 fucking different Marlboros with different animations and different skill sets and all these other things. And that is expensive, right? And going back to the Like a Dragon series is that one of the ways that they are able to keep churning out brand new Like a Dragon games. I don't mean to say churning in like an offensive way, to say that, like, they're not putting like care and love into those games. But one of the ways is that they're like effectively able to do it. Yeah, a new one a year is because of how well they reuse those assets. So, if we have like a Marlboro asset, why do we need another Marlboro asset? You know what I'm saying? You can retexture
how
that
many
Marlboro and make it, yeah.
how many people who aren't literally you and me would even notice if after 3 years they played the exact same Marlboro fight but with a different party? Like same
Right.
moves, same animations, maybe one or two new moves, but you're fighting him with a totally new party. How many people other than you and me would even notice?
Fucking no one. No one would
Exactly.
notice, and even if they did notice, would they really care? Would they really be like, I'm not buying the next one because they did this?
Yeah. It's a point of pride not to
Nobody.
do these things. It's a point of pride not to do these things, and we will make fun of it. But like, I remember people making fun of God of War Ragnarok because, oh my god, the getting into the boat animation is exactly the same. I'm like, have you played that game? Do you know how big that game is? You know how much
Right.
stuff happens in this game? I don't give a shit if he gets in the boat the same way.
Yeah. And if anything, everyone bullied that guy for being the nerd that noticed the getting in the boat animation. And like, dude, who cares? Who cares? Oh my god. Um,
Yeah.
this is a good question from Dude McGuy. When do you think FF14 will start to sunset like FF11 did, and Square Enix assigned TBU3 to work on a brand new MMO as a numbered entry, FF18 or 19 perhaps? Arguably, it might be like the very first like dimming of 14's light might be happening right now with Dawn Trail. I hate to say it, but like that might actually be like the first like kind of wave of it. Not I'm not saying that like the sun is setting like in like the next 5 minutes, but I am saying that that might be like in hindsight where we look back to like, okay, this is probably where they started thinking about Final Fantasy Online 3.
I think I might disagree with you.
Okay, go on.
I think that the way that the video game market works right now,
Yeah.
most of the money. I didn't list FF14 earlier in the list of like the 5 games where all the money's going, but it and
Mm-hmm.
World of Warcraft belong on that list with
Yeah.
Fortnite and Roblox and Call of Duty not making as much money but making money. I don't think that. I think the fact that they've introduced alternate dimensions and we can go to new planets is all the excuse they need to make that game last forever, as long as it's making money. Now, if it
Yeah.
fails, if they launch 2 expansions in a row that are just dog shit and the whole thing falls apart, then yeah, you start sundowning it. You leave it online so you can keep making that money, but you say we're going to start over completely from scratch with no monkey code from 1.0, no limitations of old hardware. We're just going to start over from scratch. But I think as long as that game keeps making money, they
Yeah.
should just keep it going.
Yeah.
I think that it makes way more sense from a business standpoint, and honestly, maybe even from an artistic standpoint, to just keep working with that because the system works. They can make content for it very quickly. And if they go, you know what, we've run out the clock on Alphino and Alize and Ashtola and Thancred and the Source, then they can just say, fine, the Warrior of Light gets on a spaceship and goes somewhere else. And as of today, if you get into FF14, you can hit a button to start from here, and you don't have to play all those other expansions. And you can just start
Yeah.
on this new planet. But you keep
Yeah.
it in the same ecosystem, you keep it the same subscriptions, you keep it the exact same user base, so you don't have to migrate people. You don't have friend groups getting splintered across 2 different games. You don't have revenue streams split across 2 different games. I'm not saying they never
Yeah.
sound down it, but in the old days, that made more sense. In the old
Yeah, for
days
sure.
of EverQuest 1 was really successful, but it was also crusty as shit. It was one of those clunker cars you had to crank with the front thing stuck in it. So we need to make a new one because the technology's gotten way better and we can't scale what we currently have. But then EverQuest 2 and Star Wars Galaxies were like immediately blown out of the water because World of Warcraft came out and was like 5 years ahead of them. FF14, in many ways, people would argue it's behind right now, but I think that those were stumbling blocks that they can learn from. There's no reason that they couldn't learn and scale and devote the money necessary to keep 14 going the way that it is. The big thing that they would need to do, I think, for a long-term investment in that game's future, other than they go to a new planet, and if you bought the game today, you can skip A Realm Reborn, Heavensward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, Endwalker, Dawntrail, whatever else. Other than that, I think it would benefit them immensely to remake a Realm Reborn. I think it would benefit them immensely to take everything they've learned about game design, dungeon design, and just writing, and just go backwards and cut out half the fat in a Realm Reborn, put in more relevant long-term world building, introduce other characters earlier, but write it in such a way that you don't have to change Heavensward, Stormblood going forward. I think even if there was no immediate, like even if they couldn't point at it and say this is a new expansion people are going to spend money on in 2 years, I think that there is a legitimate business argument to go, we have a hostile, unappealing beginning to our product. If we spend 10 months redoing the cutscenes and dungeons for a Realm Reborn, we will see big dividends long term on new player retention rates. That would be the investment I would want to see in FF14, aside from just fixing a lot of the stuff from Dawntrail.
Not to cut you off, but
go ahead.
Their plan, honestly, is to just skip to Dawntrail, at least as much as they said in interviews. So,
they said that?
Yeah. So their plan is to just cut a Realm Reborn entirely, but eventually. So not today, but eventually it seems like they're going to make it so that you don't start on the Hydaelyn Zodiark saga, it seems like.
Okay.
But you'll actually start on like eventually they want new players to start on the new saga instead. But then that also kind of becomes a little bit funny when you realize that Dawntrail is kind of met with a mixed reception.
I think Dawntrail would be received much more positively by people who haven't played the other 5 expansions.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I liked Dawntrail a lot, actually.
Really?
I think I liked it more than most people. I actually liked the front half better than the back half because I felt like the back half was kind of repeating itself a little bit.
Wow,
yeah.
Okay, because everyone else is like, the back half is worth it, the front half is like the problem. So
I loved going around and learning about new places and going on little fun adventures. I thought the characters were charming. I like Lamati. I like Gulu Jaja. I liked everybody. I thought it was a wonderful little story to be like, I am Goku. I could kill any of these guys in a second. But it's more important that Lamati learns to stand up for herself. So I'm just going to stand over here while she fights this guy. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was charming. I genuinely really enjoyed the front half. The back half was not bad, but I just felt like, we're exploring the exact same thematic ground that we explored in Shadowbringers and Endwalker. And I feel like it was still good. It was still well executed. Like that final area was like brilliant. But I did feel like we were spinning our wheels a little bit. I felt like we're repeating ourselves. This is the new we have to kill God and decide our fate has become this society. It needs to move on. I also loved that the message. I'm sorry, this is turning into a little micro Dawntrail review. I loved genuinely most of the characters in FF14 don't have character arcs because they can't. They need to be archetypes who can facilitate all of this stuff going on. They don't really learn and change like a ton. I love that game was legitimately about Lamati learning a lesson. I love that it begins with, I'm going to be the leader of my country, and when I'm in country, I'll protect everybody's smiles, the classic anime thing. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to be the best diplomat, and I'm going to make everybody happy, and then there's going to be no fighting. And on day 3, no, even before she's in charge, it's like day 2 of her reign. She's like, I guess sometimes to make people happy, you do have to kill people. You know what? I guess when you're in charge of a country, meaning that other people get to live peaceful lives, means that you have to make really hard decisions. I genuinely really liked Dawntrail. I thought it was a little uneven. I definitely had issues with it, but I think people who were like, oh my god, is FF14 washed, were like way blowing it out of proportion.
Right.
And I think a new person going into that adventure for the first time, not having just come off of going to the moon and killing Zodiark and all of the big revelations, I think somebody who started on Dawntrail would probably like it more. I think the only thing that would be weird is like you'd be hanging out with Alphino and Alize and Graha, and you're like, who are these people? That would be the hardest onboarding thing about it. But you've got Ehrenwald and Lamati, and
I'm sure they'll come up with some type of like recap or something that they'll do to like
Oh,
introduce
sure.
those people when they eventually do that. And also,
Definitely.
to be clear, I guess when I said, or like the way I interpreted sunsetting here was not so much that the game would be dead, or not even so much that they wouldn't make expansions anymore.
Mhm.
Just that our peak concurrent subscribers probably on the downtrend. Like, will we ever see like the same number of subscribers that we saw ridiculously explode with Shadowbringers and Endwalker?
Yeah.
That's where I'm a little bit more skeptical that we would get back to that point. So I think
I just don't know if they would get lucky again. I don't know if they would get lucky if they tried again, because there are so many people who are FF heads who are just FF14 heads.
Right.
And it's got the reputation now. I feel like they try again and they miss, and they don't get an A Realm Reborn recovery story. That's why I feel like you stick with the one that's already making money. Like, because nobody at Epic is sitting around going, "When do we make Fortnite 2?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's where I come in on it.
Exactly.
I know it's a different thing.
Right. WoW never reached Wrath of the Lich King numbers either. Okay, that's good to know, actually. So they never hit
These
those
things all have their
numbers again
peak,
either.
but they can still make money reliably.
Right. So I think it'll still keep going reliably for like a really long time. I don't think that like it'll like stop getting expansions for like some brand new thing, but I do think that like they probably will consider making, if not like FF Online 3, which I don't know if they'll ever do, just because the MMO market may not be like the correct thing to do. I think that they'll probably focus on, if anything, making something in the gacha space. So I feel like making FF, or what I'm tentatively calling FF Online 3, I think that eventually an FF, I don't know if I want to say it like this, like an FF Genshin like, or something that's roughly in that space. Like they're definitely considering that. And I think that the need for something like that probably came about when the numbers for Endwalker reached their peak and they realized that they are probably not going to hit those numbers again. So I just wanted to...
You can do a Final Fantasy Genshin, and instead of doing it, okay, now we got to do Honkai Star Rail, now we got to do Zenless Zone with totally different gameplay systems. I guess you could still do that, but you could also just easily have like, okay, in the next season, your gacha roster of characters is wiped, and there's a new planet, and you have a new characters and new story, and once you beat the main story quest, then you can bring in all your old characters for side quests and stuff. But like, we're gonna introduce, it's gonna be like a new FF every couple of years. The mention of all the WoW stuff was what made me reach for this. I just want to briefly plug Jason Schreier's book on Blizzard, which is an excellent read. But one of the things that's interesting that comes away with this book is structured into the rise, fall, and recovery are the three parts of it. And the fall is the launch of WoW. And that may sound confusing.
Wow.
Why would the company fall with the launch of their most successful thing ever? Because that made so much money that nothing else internally could ever compete with it. It created two problems. Number one, we're going to spend 4 years making a new Diablo, and we're going to spend a lot of money on it. And it came out, and it did really well, but didn't make as much money as WoW did in like 2 quarters. So why do we even spend money on Diablo? And the other problem that happened was that company has so much money coming into it every month that they could incubate projects for years and never get anything done. And it didn't matter because we don't have to lay anybody off. We don't have to tell these guys to giddy up and go because we've got infinite money. Like they were developing, another MMO, it was supposed to be like a superhero themed MMO. It was called Titan. There's a lot of info about this in this book. And they worked on it for like 7 years and never got anywhere. The game design kept changing. They never even really had a prototype. They worked on it for years and nothing came of it. They eventually recycled a lot of the art assets into Overwatch. But they were allowed to just faff about with the concept of a really big MMO for years because they were making so much money that it didn't matter. Not necessarily related to FF14's situation because as we know, they're turning around but it's just interesting how this is why I talk about like why you don't unplug the life support on FF14 to build a new one necessarily. It might be better to, the same way you wouldn't make a Fortnite 2 or a Roblox 2. Even if you've got major limitations in your code or your game engine from when you made Fortnite or Roblox 15 years ago, it's probably better to just spend the time and the growing pains of updating it and to keep going because you've got the audience there already. Sorry, that's another thing. I apologize.
No, I think that was a better answer than what I had for sure. No, that was a great. Do we have any more great chat questions? Let me look and see really quickly.
Somebody commented Ever Crisis should be recycled into a proper soft remake of 7. I don't know if we need another soft remake of 7, but that's another example of a game we could definitely recycle into something. Because there have been multiple attempts at Final Fantasy mobile phone games. They didn't really work, like Brave Exvius and whatever else. I think you could definitely take Ever Crisis and you could turn that into more like a Honkai Star Rail type scenario. You could scale up from that with whatever team they're outsourcing to. You could maybe integrate that a bit more, turn that into a Honkai Star Rail type situation.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that hole in their current lineup is something that they eventually have to do because right now, I don't think it's pessimistic at all to just bluntly say that Square's mobile division is cooked at the moment.
They're terrible. I can't. It doesn't make any sense that the Phantom X exists before Final Fantasy got an equivalent.
I know.
Here is a totally new.
Ahead.
Yeah, they were ahead. It doesn't make any sense.
And like, not like a little bit ahead of like the rest of the mobile market. They were quantum leaps ahead of everybody else.
They were like building their entire business model around it.
Yeah, like, dude, go look at Mobius Final Fantasy and compare that to literally any other gacha game of the same era. It is not even close how advanced that game was compared to everything else. That game had voice acting, fully animated cutscenes, like gorgeous 3D graphics.
Yeah.
It was a console quality game.
But it had a really kind of shitty design for a main character. And honestly, they were probably a little bit too far ahead of the curve that people didn't want to go play a game on their phones. And like the fact, again, like right now you can play Phantom X and Honkai. Phantom X is on consoles, right? I know Honkai Star Rail and all those are on consoles.
It is.
Is the Phantom X on?
It is coming to consoles.
Is it currently phones and PC or
just phones and PC right now? Console version is coming.
Right. Well, it's going to happen eventually. That's my point. Like Mobius was never going to take off because the existing audience was on consoles. You need both. And like, the fact that we're getting like, hey, here's a brand new Persona story with a brand new group of Phantom Thieves, and there's a seasonal event where you can get Joker in your party. Why? Like there should be the same thing for Final Fantasy. Here's a brand new party, a brand new adventure, and you don't even necessarily have to make that sustain forever. You could have like, here's a story with a beginning and ending and a final boss that runs for 2 years, and seasonal events where you can get Terra and you can get Squall and Renoa or whatever for your party, right? And then like after you've told that story in that world with those characters, you keep it in the exact same executable. You keep it in the same software. You reboot it on a new planet, new setting. And until you get to the end, like until you're like replaying or doing post game or whatever, you can't bring in those old characters, or maybe you can, I don't know. You occasionally do like, hey, in the world of that first game where those first characters were, that first story, we're going to do an event where we get to check in on what those characters are up to a year later. You get to reuse all those assets. You get to reuse that map. You get to put new missions there while you build out a whole new Final Fantasy franchise. It should be such a no-brainer. And it's bizarre they haven't built something like that.
Yeah, I know. And I think that they're going to do it. And I want to say it might already be in development somewhere or in planning stages.
I would bet that it is.
But yeah, but it's going to come out and it's going to be one of those things where it's like, dang, you guys launched this a decade too late.
Yeah.
Like literally everything. Okay, so I think that this is probably a good wrapping up point. I think. Jacob, is there anything that you're working on currently that you want to tell people to look out for or do we have to wait until Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out for a new upload, sir?
You might have to wait until Kingdom Hearts 4 comes out. No, I mean I've got God, man, I got so much stuff sitting around in my backlog. I've like I said, I've got multiple fully filmed Let's Plays that aren't edited. To be fair, one of them, the Uncharted 4 playthrough, I lost several hours of footage when we shot it, and I got to figure out how to reconstruct it. But like, I don't know. I'm hoping that I'll be back with new video essays and Let's Plays and streams and podcast stuff relatively soon. I'm just having a real hard time making time because I got a real job. And my main creative energy for the last like year has been going into writing a novel. Which I can't plug because you can't read it. It's not out. You can't read it, so it's not really a plug. I'm 200,000 words deep into a novel, and it's not finished, which means it is an epic fantasy novel. So that length is kind of allowed, but 200,000 words is the upper ceiling of what's considered like acceptable freshman for publishable.
Wow.
And I don't know how much I'm going to be able to cut it down, especially because it's only getting longer. So probably that book is going to go on the shelf, and I'm going to try and write something shorter and come back to it later. But, with a real job and me trying to like write seriously, YouTube just has been major back burner. But I am sincerely hoping to be back with periodic video essays or talk to camera stuff. Occasionally. It will never be frequently. YouTube was never and will never be my full-time job. But I'm hoping to be back with some of that stuff soon. And I hope to, at the same time, get things rolling at a regular cadence on research runs, which is my second channel again. Used to be, I usually tried to average like a video a week on research runs, be it a new episode of a Let's Play or a podcast or a discussion or whatever. I hope to at least be able to get back to that. No promises on Frustrated Jacob main channel content being anywhere near that consistent. Also, I'm doing what you got to do to appease the algorithm and to release videos on a regular cadence. I'm working on some highlight compilations of some Let's Plays and stuff like that.
Awesome.
I have a really, really funny Alan Wake compilation in the works. I think that was a stream. Those were streams, so a lot of people missed them. A lot of people didn't watch them. I think that Alan Wake playthrough might be one of the funniest things that Joey and I has ever filmed, though. I'm looking forward to getting that compilation out.
Awesome. Can't wait. All right, guys. This is Night Sky signing off. What a great conversation that we've had here today, and I appreciate you all. And we'll see you all next time. We promise it won't be, because I think it was like 10 months since our last conversation. So maybe we'll do something soonish, once Remake 3 gets announced. I think that'll be a good time.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Bye, guys.